Hi, welcome to the Brick Filmers Guild podcast, hosted by us, the Four Monkeys. On this podcast, we had the extreme pleasure of chatting with Josh Chawner of Hamster Productions. Josh is a British brick filmer known for brick films without dialogue that feature large sets and scenarios, often involving extended chase sequences or other action scenes. He has over 200,000 YouTube subscriptions and almost 150 million views. I want to give an extra quick shout out to our wonderful Patreon supporters: Something's Awry Productions, Frame 5 Studios, Mind Game Studios, Dark Dragon Films, Forest Fire 101, Spencer Katz, Paganimation, William Osborne, Sam Futhy, and the Tenacious Brick. Thank you so much for supporting our podcasts. This podcast is sponsored by FX Home, the makers of HitFilm Pro, HitFilm Express, Emerge Pro, and more. HitFilm Express is a free video editing software with professional-grade VFX tools. It's a perfect fit for the average brick filmer's budget. HitFilm Pro is the top choice for video artists worldwide. In a single product, you get editing, compositing, titling, and 3D tools. HitFilm Pro is loaded with tons of professional features. Emerge Pro is a photo editing software that is powerful, easy to use, and a great replacement for what you're using now. Please head over to FX Home to find one of their products that will help you bring your brick films to life. If you would like to help support our podcast, you can do so by becoming a Patreon supporter. Get podcasts at least 3 weeks before anyone else, and other perks only available to our Patreon supporters. So, without further ado, here's our conversation with Josh. Welcome, Josh Chawner of Hamster Productions, or also known as Dr. Joshua Michael Allen Chawner. Congratulations on your doctorate in physics.
Thank you very much, Kim, and thanks for having me on the podcast. It's a great pleasure to be here.
It's an honor to have you here, and yeah. What a incredible feat there, getting that. That's you're so intelligent. I'm almost at a loss for words here. That's really something to be so proud of.
I think you are our first doctor we've spoken to. There might be someone else trying to get their doctorate, but I don't think they have it yet that we've spoken to in the past. So you are our first official doctor.
Wow. Well, that's a very big honor for me. And thank you for your kind words as well. And
also first of the new year too. So very exciting. So happy and excited to have you on our podcast. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, well, this is a great way to start the year. Being on the Brick Filmers Guild podcast, I'm very excited to be here.
We're excited to have you, so thank you again. And I guess the hard part is, as much as it's really hard not to start. I feel like we could talk for hours just about the Barracuda heist and the behind the scenes. I mean, I feel like that could take up hours of fun chat. But I guess we should probably go a little bit further back and start somewhere else. So yeah, really hard not to just do the whole podcast on that.
Well, I'm very pleased you like those films, and yeah, I'm very proud of those films. So I'm sure we will have to talk about those at some point. But
absolutely. Yeah. and you're so much fun to watch. You're obviously very comfortable on the camera. You're behind the scenes, and tutorials are just. They're so fun to watch, especially like someone like me who doesn't brick film, but obviously knows all about it. You just make it fun for anybody to watch. You're very charming, very sweet, just like you are online, and what you see, that's how you are. And so very excited to have you here.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, and I'm glad that's how it comes across. And I do enjoy making the videos, so yeah, I'm glad you can feel that when you watch them.
Absolutely.
Well, let's kind of go back into your origin story of what got you into stop motion, Lego stop motion, or Lego in general, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, let's go back then. So first of all, for as long as I can remember, I've been surrounded by Lego. So I have 3 brothers, 2 of which are older than me. So even when I was just after I'd been born, my older brothers were already playing with Lego. So I can't actually remember not liking Lego. It just has always been there. And so that from the get-go, I've always been a big Lego fan. And, you know, growing up as a kid, I'd often play with Lego, and storytelling was definitely a huge part of that. I'd come up with my own stories behind the Lego sets that I got. I would often play out stories for my younger brother. And so there's always been that side to my childhood. And then in terms of actual stop motion, that came much later. Probably, I'm just trying to remember now. I made my first ever brick film in 2006. So I would have been about, I would have been 12 years old. And the inspiration to do this actually came from my love of Wallace and Gromit.
Oh, I love them too.
Yeah. Okay. I'm very pleased you've heard of Wallace and Gromit. Yeah, I loved Wallace and Gromit growing up. I still love Wallace and Gromit.
Same.
And for those who don't know, it's these are like claymation shorts. They're made here in the UK, down in Bristol, and they're just classic animations that everyone should go watch. And I was obsessed with these films. I'd watch them over and over. In fact, even to this day, basically every Christmas time I'll put them on. And so I decided, what's stopping me from doing my own animation at home, with clay or whatever. And part of the inspiration to do this actually came from the fact that they released a Wallace and Gromit make your own clay Wallace and Gromit kit.
Nice.
And the idea is that you could then animate it. And funnily enough, I saw this kit in the store, and I think at some point I did end up getting it, but it was the idea on the back of the box where it's like, you can animate these at home. It just stuck with me. So I actually didn't buy it immediately, but I went home thinking I can do stop motion at home. And so I borrowed my brother's digital camera, which was awful. It couldn't focus on anything further, closer than 3 meters away or whatever. But so I did these incredibly out of focus at least attempts at stop motion. And because I already had a large Lego collection, it just naturally, I just naturally came to the conclusion I could use these as my, for my sets and for my characters. And so I actually never did animate with the clay Wallace and Gromit kit. I just went straight to Lego. And of course, in 2006, I made my first short, which I've unfortunately lost. But it was, I think, 3 ways to kill a skeleton. So I had a little Lego skeleton, and there'd be 3 examples of a way you could destroy the skeleton. And I don't know, maybe a minifigure would be hitting it with an axe or something. And of course, at this time, 2006 going into 2007, YouTube was about a year or 2 old. And me and one of my older brothers very quickly fell in love with YouTube. It was just this amazing thing of you could look up any video you wanted and maybe see speed runs of a video game or see some little comedy sketches. So I think in 2007, I made my YouTube account, and we very quickly sort of fell into that world of YouTube. And yeah, I think around this time I decided I was going to start uploading my animations to YouTube. And of course, at that time, they were very, amateur. And, I was certainly learning a lot. But over the years, I guess I improved. And by 2010, I'd become a YouTube partner and, started to earn money from these videos. And that provided incentive to keep it going. I've always enjoyed doing it, but, life gets busier the older you get, generally.
For sure.
And, when I was going to high school and college and then university, I had less time to actually do the animations, but I always kept it going. I always made sure I got at least one animation done each year. And, partly because Hamster Productions was growing and I wanted to see it grow. But also because I just loved making them and seeing the reaction to making them. So that basically, I feel, in a nutshell, is the journey I went on to go into brick filming. It was kind of a very natural sequence of events, and of course, through doing this, I watched other Lego animators, and I've always kind of had my eye on the brick filming scene. Although I'd say it's only really until the last year or two that I've started to be a bit more active in the community. But that's been nice to sort of be part of that as well. So, I hope that answers your question anyway, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a silly little thing, but yeah, I love Wallace and Gromit. Always have. Used to watch all of them with my son when he was younger. And to this day, if I hear cheese, all I see, I see cheese, Gromit, and with the little smile and the fingers going, twiddly, twiddly. Love them. Always will. Always have. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
No, you have excellent taste. You have excellent taste. Those shorts, as far as I care, those shorts are basically perfection, and I absolutely adore them.
Yeah, same. Now, when you started, the name was it Frank Fred Lego?
It was, yeah. Which was, I guess, a bit of an odd name because my name is not Frank or Fred. Actually, funnily enough, that name actually came about from when I was at high school. One of my oldest friends, shout out to Dominic Page. We grew up together in my hometown, and we went to high school together. And we had, whenever we had to do a school presentation, and it'd be the two of us, we had like these kind of pseudonym names that we used. And I don't know why we did this. And I'm looking back, I'm trying to remember why we did this. But for some reason, if we were ever like, maybe in drama class, we were like presenting something or had to be characters, we'd always go for these names. And he would be Cuthbert and I would be Frankfurt. Huh. And that's just kind of what we had. So whenever I made an account online, growing up, the internet becoming a bigger and bigger thing, it was kind of like, you always, when you made an account, you wouldn't use your real name, for privacy or whatever. So I just went for Frankfurt as my name, and I think that might have been taken on YouTube or something. So I went for Frankfurt Lego, and that's where that came from. But yeah, like I used that name for years and years. Still always alongside Hamster Productions. Hamster Productions was always there, even in my earliest videos. In like the credits and stuff, but the YouTube channel name was Frankfurt Lego for a while. Yeah.
So is the hamster? Do you have a love of hamsters? Do you have a hamster, or?
The thing about this is, I get asked this a lot. Like, what's the deal with Hamster Productions? And I wish I had a great answer. I wish I had a cool answer, but the reality is, it's as simple as when I was 12 years old, we had a pet hamster. She was called Ginger. I liked my pet hamster, so I called it Hamster Productions. That is the story. And I just wish the story could be more impactful than that. But no, that's it.
Actually, but that's very apropos, if you will. You did have a hamster. We get asked the same thing, and ours is worse. It's like, well, how'd you come up with the four monkeys? Well, yeah, really, we definitely did not have a hamster. I mean, a monkey. We're cheeky monkeys. That's about it. Cheeky monkeys, and there's really no specific answer as to how we picked that. I really don't even know. So yours is actually better. So you win.
Yeah, well, Okay, well that's the first time that's been said to me, so thanks. I think why is it 4? Can I ask why it's 4? Who are the 4 monkeys?
Because there's 4 of us, me and Dave, and then the 2 kids, and our son is the one that actually got us or introduced Lego stop motion originally.
Yeah, I think he did the first brick film.
Yeah, he did. So he started before we did. And then our daughter started when she was 3. We have videos of her, which is really cute because you hear her little voice. And it's great having these things, when you start young, because it's like Forrest. I mean, that's a great example. His voice has changed over the years. And it's just so neat to hear and to have that, especially for a parent, to have those memories of their kids and everything. It's a wonderful thing. So yeah, I think he was the one that even introduced us to Forrest, and I think isn't that what got you interested?
Tables, he's like, yeah, there's this one guy named Forest Fire 101. He's making these Lego brick film or Lego stop motions. I don't even know that it was called brick films, but when I first started, it's like, oh wow, this makes sense to use Lego to do this.
And of course, we had a load of Lego from our son because he had a ton of sets. And we used to play with them, of course, and build them when he was little. So
your kids introduced you into brick filming, and then now you're sort of, I mean, you are the community. You're the Brick Filmers Guild. Doing all these podcasts. You're so entrenched now in the brick filming world. That's kind of, I don't know, I just find that quite incredible.
Yeah, we're a little entrenched. I was lucky enough, I think it was from 2014 to 2016. I actually quit my job and took a job as, I guess it was a professional brick filmer. We made brick films of a product called Oyo Sports or Oyo Sports Toys. It was basically clones of Lego, and they were, football, national football,
but all sports figures, though.
Hockey, baseball, and all that. So I made all these sports brick films professionally for 2 years, and during that time, it's like I need to learn, and the best way to learn is talk to the best brick filmers in the world and see if I can get some secrets from them. So that was sort of where the podcast came from. We made the Brick Filmers Guild probably back in, I think it was 2011 or 12. And it was because I fell in love with this software called ELGG. It was this open source social networking software. And we created a website, and then it was having issues with it. So, we just switched it over to a Weebly site, which kind of fit for what I was doing more. And we stuck with that, but it was originally because I just thought this software was really cool to be able to make, social networking stuff. So I was like, I want to do this.
Yeah, but the podcasts were, for selfish reasons so that we could learn. Of course, if we wanted to know, it would help other brick filmers as well.
Win-win.
Well, I think, you're doing the brick filming community a service with these podcasts. I certainly know that I've already picked up a few tips from the podcast. I listened to a couple of episodes. Well, first of all, I listened to the episode with David Pagano.
Yeah.
I actually had no idea that he wrote a book on Lego animation, specifically Lego animation. So of course I ordered one.
Nice.
That's been nice to flick through. And then I also listened to the episode with Michael Hickox. I remember he mentioned about some equipment that you can use to get basically some trickery you can do with your camera to get extra short focal distances, I think by using spacer rings. So that's another tip I picked up. So yeah, the point is, I feel like these podcasts are a service for the brick filming community and those interested in the brick filming community. So even if the reasons were initially selfish, the output is not selfish.
Well, thank you. No, appreciate you listening. And yes, David will be thrilled to know that you purchased one of the books. It's really an amazing.
We've got several books, so they're all pretty good. But David Pagano and David Pickett's book is the best one. It's the clearest. It's simple, yet it goes into some details that you can be a beginner or you can be an expert, and you're going to get something out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've enjoyed flicking through that because I have collected a number of books, more general stop motion related. I actually have the Aardman book of filming, so they're the people who made Wallace and Gromit, and that book is fantastic. Highly recommend that. But yeah, it's nice to read a detailed book that is specifically built around Lego stop motion, not just stop motion in general. So yeah, I just it's nice to have this kind of in the studio, and if I ever need to have a quick check or of something, I can just look at the index and see if there's any advice in this book. So yeah, that's been useful.
Yeah, my Lego animation book is always within arm's reach away in my studio if I need it.
Okay. So do you have a book out as well? Do you, Dave?
No, I do not have a book.
Okay, so you said my stop motion. I wondered if you were talking about.
No. That's the name of the book. It's the Lego animation book.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah,
but
we
no.
have a hard enough time talking, let alone writing a book.
That's fair enough. But if you ever do write a book, let me know. I think that makes two of us, Dave. I have mine at the ready I've got like a little growing library in my studio actually, and I found that to be very valuable in times of crisis. Just quickly look things up in the books. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you're actually pretty good at writing, though, aren't you? I mean, let's take a segue into your doctorate.
So yeah, I mean, is there anything in particular you would like me to discuss in regards to that, or?
Well, I know you've written several published papers, but there's one that really resonates a lot because technically it even has a brick film embedded in your video you made for it. It's the your physics experiment, which was for your doctorate about freezing Lego minifigure and some Lego bricks.
Bricks, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, you're absolutely right. We did write a paper about that, and this was a funny one. So I studied for my PhD in Lancaster at Lancaster University, and they have an excellent ultra low temperature physics department there. And I worked alongside them on many projects. My PhD was in quantum electronics, which have to operate in low temperature environments. So I work closely with the guys at ULT, is the abbreviated term. And basically, I was, get along with my PhD, doing those projects. And one of my colleagues there who was aware of my YouTube channel. In fact, basically everyone at Lancaster was aware of my YouTube channel. I can't seem to go anywhere without people finding out some way about my Lego videos. But anyway, so one of my colleagues, he's Dmitry Zmeev, or as I call him, Dima. He approached me to say, you got this YouTube channel. We have these amazing fridges. They've got these hand-built fridges at Lancaster. You won't see them anywhere else in the world. The fridges like these. And he said, why don't we just put a Lego figure in they're called dilution fridges, in the dilution fridge, and cool it to the lowest temperature we can get to. And we know without a doubt, basically, that'll be the world's coldest Lego figure. There's no way that anyone has done this before, because like I said, these are very specialist pieces of equipment. And these fridges, by the way, can actually get to the coldest temperature physically possible. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Kelvin scale, but basically it gives a temperature readout in terms of absolute temperature. So 0 degrees Kelvin is the coldest temperature physically possible. Well, actually, you can't even get to 0 degrees Kelvin. That is actually physically impossible due to the laws of thermodynamics. But I'm digressing at this point. It can get very close. It can get very close to that temperature. So we're talking like 1,000th of a degree above absolute zero. And so we decided we'd do this video about putting a minifig in the fridge. And, we didn't think, basically we just thought like, I'd film it. It'd be a bit of a laugh, put it on YouTube. Why not? I wasn't animating at this time. I was fully focused on my PhD, and that very much is a full-time job. So I didn't have the time really to animate. So I thought, well, it'd be a nice video for the channel, and it'll be fun to do. And so we were doing this project, and Dima, because he's a genius, he set up this little bit of apparatus in the bottom of the fridge that will actually allow us to put in like some blocks of Lego as well and measure the thermal conductivity from the top of the stack of blocks to the bottom. And we just thought, why not? And so we ran the experiment, and I think we got to about 4 degrees millikelvin, which is 4 thousandths of a degree above absolute zero. And of course, we were filming it all for the video. But what was amazing was I was given all the data from the stack of blocks and the thermal conductivity measurements, and I was processing it and analyzing it. I did it all in Python, which is a coding language, and we were comparing it to these other industry standard materials, because at low temperature environments you need good insulators for a variety of reasons. You need to protect things thermally, you have to isolate one thing from another. So there are all these materials that are used to do this, and I was comparing our results with the well-established results from these well-known materials, and it was it was insulating better than the industry standards. So, I was showing this to Dima, and we're just like, this seems crazy. It's Lego bricks. It's so cheap. People are paying a fortune for these other materials, and it's performing better. And so we were like, right, this is paper worthy. Let's get a draft written. So it was very surreal, because on the one hand, I was trying to do my PhD in quantum electronics and all that, and I think I was working on a paper for that at the time. And I'd be doing that, and I'd be sat in a coffee shop writing this paper, and I'd be like, right, now for the Lego paper. And I just sort of had this moment where I'm like, what is happening? Why am I writing an academic paper about Lego bricks? This just seems so weird and mad. Anyway, so I wrote the draft. And I sent it to Dima, and Dima was happy with it. So we shared it with the group, and it got such a reaction from everybody. And it, and people were just going this is crazy, this paper, but no one could actually fault it though. I mean, the science was completely sound. And so we kept going back and forth, improving the draft, and then we got it sent off, and we had it published in Scientific Reports. And that was a very I don't know, the whole thing was just kind of a runaway train at this point, because then of course we released the film, and that did well, and Lancaster University were promoting the paper and the film, because it was all excellent outreach, as well as genuinely interesting scientific results. So it was kind of, everybody was happy with it, and it went on to win a few film awards at some science festivals. And the paper had a huge number of reads. I think it's over 120,000 reads, which I know for a YouTube video, 120,000 views is, respectable, but not a huge amount. For an academic paper to get that many reads is actually quite incredible and very, very rare. So I'm extremely proud about what we achieved with that. And the whole thing was just kind of a crazy experience, to be honest.
And isn't this what you won first prize from the IOP, Institute of Physics?
Yeah, so I think that definitely had something to do with it. So
that's amazing. I mean, that's congratulations. That is so amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got to say it was, when I finished my PhD, when I wrote the thesis, anyone will tell you writing a thesis is tough, and it's a challenge to get to the other side of that. And after doing all that work, getting the thesis done, you say, that I was very delighted and surprised to have been awarded the IOP Low Temperature Physics Thesis Prize. And I think it was definitely partly due to the chapter on the Lego experiment that got me that. So that was just a really nice surprise, and I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely. And that was a lot of fun to watch too. It was so nice. Everybody was so, of course, I'm the huge Anglophile, so everybody was so nice and friendly and funny. And just curious, did you have a hypothesis of what the Lego, how they would come out, like once you took them out? Because I thought for sure they'd be cracked.
Yeah, well, I was surprised that they basically were unaffected. I think basically, if they were disturbed in any way during the low temperature, whilst the fridge was at low temperature, they probably would have been quite brittle and probably would have cracked pretty easily. But because it's an extremely quiet environment inside these fridges, it has to be, because actually any form of energy, you know, whether it be vibrational energy, radiation, light, whatever, any form of energy would completely disturb the low temperature environment. So these fridges are incredibly well isolated. You know, they float on these huge concrete blocks that are on air springs to remove any sort of vibrational noise. So the reality is that whilst the fridge is at this low temperature, even if the Lego is extremely brittle at that temperature and could fracture easily, there's not going to be anything that will actually cause that fracture. So I think that's the reason why the Lego was effectively unaffected. But it was kind of a surprise. I did wonder whether something would happen, like maybe like the printing on the Lego figure's face would come off, or I don't know, like something kind of unpredictable would occur. But no, the Lego got through fine, and yeah, we still have it actually. If anyone ever visits Lancaster University, we still proudly have up the Lego figure that went to that low temperature environment, or as we call it, the world's first Lego cryonaut.
That's right.
Yeah, so you can
awesome.
You can go see it. Yeah,
I wish we could. I would love to. It was so beautiful there. I loved seeing all the shots that you had in your videos. Just absolutely gorgeous.
Well, your Lego...
I think this kind of thing as well, it does give a good impression of what it's like at that particular department. Like the ultra low temperature group at Lancaster, you know, there's just such things happen there. You know, there's just such intelligence from the people that work there. Like I said, with setting up the apparatus to measure the thermal conductivity of the Lego, you know, the Dima just set that up, you know, as easy as breathing. He's just like, oh, by the way, I've thrown this together. And, you know, that's the kind of environment it is there. You know, you have an idea and it can become reality very quickly. So, yeah, it was an absolute joy to work on that experiment.
Well, I might have clicked on your thesis paper, and it was way above my pay grade. But the video was definitely something that was watchable for the layman like myself. And yeah, it was quite entertaining.
Very enjoyable,
but
yeah.
It was really cool that
really cool, literally.
Yeah. Oh, the amount of times that joke's been made in like URT, it's like, oh gosh, yeah.
Can't help it.
Can't help it. But it's a good joke, to be fair. It's a good joke.
And when things get that cold, it gets all quantum and stuff, right? You know, I'm not probably using the word right, but things start acting a little weird, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or it's more that basically quantum. Okay, if you're doing any kind of experiment where you're trying to investigate some quantum property, in a lot of cases, you need to be able to pick up extremely delicate signals, and basically at room temperature. So, you know, I don't know what the temperature is where you guys are, but where I am, it's about 19 or 20 degrees. And at that kind of temperature, so this is Celsius, by the way, I'm talking about. At that kind of temperature, or like room temperature, everything has a certain amount of thermal energy, so that if you actually zoomed in and looked at the individual atoms, they'd kind of be like jostling about and kind of vibrating with a sort of amount of energy that would correspond to that temperature. And the reality is that if you're trying to pick up some extremely sensitive signals, or maybe you're trying to measure single electrons or other quantum particles, you're not going to be able to pick up those signals if everything's just throwing itself around like that. And so to be able to see what's going on, you actually need to put your experiment in these low temperature environments. And all that thermal energy is simply just sucked out the system when you have it in these fridges. And the atoms become very still. And it's like, when you study physics, you have all these mathematical equations that kind of explain things, or models that obey certain rules of maths to explain how things work. And you can kind of see that maths a lot more clearly once you've removed a lot of this thermal noise. And so basically, if you're trying to do an experiment, particularly like what my thesis was on, which was basically quantum circuits. So I would have special kind of electronic circuits where I could literally count each electron as it would maybe hop across one piece of metal to another, one at a time. And when you're doing something like that, you need that low temperature environment. Otherwise, you're simply just not going to be able to see what's going on. So I hope that kind of explains a little bit why, these quantum experiments operate at the low temperature environments.
Yeah, very nice.
For as much as my brain can take that in, yeah. Basically, it slows things down to where it's observable in a way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Things do get weird when you go when we start looking at quantum physics. And I know this is meant to be a Lego animation podcast, but I'm very happy to talk about quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is one of my passions in life, shall we say. I find it absolutely fascinating, and I could talk for a very long time about this subject.
Well, before we jump off of the subject, because I do find it a very interesting subject, I'm definitely no scientist or anything like that. But are you a fan by chance of Sean Carroll?
Sean Carroll? I'm embarrassed to say. It rings a bell, but I'm embarrassed to say.
He's a proponent of the multiverse, I believe. And
yes. Did he wrote the quite popular book on the many worlds interpretation, right?
I think that is actually it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That book is actually on my list to read. And I know that certainly a lot of people in the, who in the academic world who study physics, either don't really give much time to the many worlds interpretation, or perhaps even actively say it's probably that's not the case. But I think, for those who are interested in that, it's called Quantum Foundations, this topic of how do we interpret quantum mechanics. I actually, from everything I've read, the many worlds interpretation, actually is a lot more persuasive than I think people perhaps even care to admit. It's extremely fascinating. I really want to read more about it because it's actually a very elegant way to describe, it's a very elegant way to interpret quantum mechanics. So I will definitely be reading more into that.
Dave is big into podcasts, so I think don't you?
Yeah, so Sean Carroll has a podcast.
Okay.
And
I'll have to listen to it. And actually, funnily enough, I fully intend to do some quantum mechanics explained with Lego stop motion videos at some point in the future. I don't know when. I always take a very long time with my projects, but that is definitely something I've got in the pipeline. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, that'd be great, because that would be a really fun way for kids to learn that.
Yeah, and I actually think that it's one of those topics where
well, not just kids, grown-ups too, but you know what I mean.
No, but absolutely. I think it is one of those topics that it can be explained in a way that's, I want to say, even in a simple manner that even perhaps a kid who's interested in science could understand. But unfortunately, I think that the state at the moment is that quantum mechanics is a very eerie and confusing area of physics, even though it gives us such fantastic and powerful models to predict how things work, in terms of interpreting what's going on, it doesn't actually make sense, or there's a lot of issues that need being solved. Well, it depends who you ask, but and I just think that people get a bit bamboozled when they look into quantum mechanics, and there's a lot of things that are being said, like with Schrodinger's cats and many worlds, and the conscious observer, and all these terms are getting thrown around that actually muddy the water and confuse people, and people walk away with the with the wrong ideas about quantum mechanics. And I know that it's possible to explain it in a way that keeps with the science, but also explores kind of the more weird aspects without confusing people. And that's definitely something I aim to do in the future.
I think it would be great if you did that. I mean, to me, the best teachers are the ones that can make learning fun, and that's how you remember things. And if you can bring something that's relatable to somebody, it makes it so much easier for them to learn. If it's fun learning, you're going to want to learn.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think actually, ultimately, it's an absolutely fascinating topic. And I think anyone who's kind of interested even a little bit in science or how things work, I think would find quantum mechanics absolutely fascinating. It's just you need to get it needs to be presented in a way that actually makes some kind of sense to get people on board, and to realize how kind of fascinating it is. So that's definitely something I want to I see myself getting into in the future.
So do you look at your physics path as potentially going down more education, being like a professor, or research, or like working for some evil organization making some, I'm joking about it.
It's just an option. It's an option. I could just become a full-time mad scientist. Why not? I think I definitely want to have physics in my life in some way, in my work life some way, going into the future. I just need to figure out what that will look like.
Well, I mean, it's exciting to hear your excitement. It's very contagious. Your YouTube video now has over 200.
The channel.
The channel. Sorry.
Yeah.
Has over 200,000 subscribers. Amazing. Yep. And almost 150 million views.
Thank you.
That's incredible.
Much, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, it's been incredibly humbling, if I'm being perfectly honest, the response to my videos. And I think, if I'm being perfectly honest, although I do enjoy making the videos, it's the response I get to the videos has been so overwhelmingly positive that I just get this absolute thrill from making these videos, putting them on YouTube, seeing the reaction, and if that's where I think the love of doing these animations comes from. It's being able to share it with such a positive audience. I mean, I feel so blessed as well that everyone accepts it on YouTube. You usually get a few haters or whatever, or people who write negative comments or give you thumbs down. And, to be fair, I get a little bit of that, but it's so overwhelmed by the positive response I get. I feel very fortunate to have such a positive fan base. And yeah, it's the numbers that you've mentioned have it's hard to comprehend. There's so many people that have even watched my videos, but that's the way it is.
Well deserved for sure. Yeah, there's always going to be haters, though. I mean, everybody, doesn't matter who, because you can't please everybody, and so you just have to go into it knowing that. It's like, as long as you're happy with what you do, then there's always going to be a lot of people that are going to be equally as happy, and certainly even more that appreciate what you do. So just know that you're making a lot of people happy, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that, Kim. And I'll say this as well, because I'm doing the animation full time now, and when I tell people, or maybe when I meet people for the first time and I tell them what I do, the reaction is always so positive. It's kind of almost overwhelming in a sense, just how people light up when I tell them that I do like stop motion, and I do it primarily with Lego, and I've got my studio where I work from, and people are just fascinated by it. And people who see my videos always come back to tell me how much fun they had watching them, and and I also do get nice messages from time to time from people, maybe they've got maybe a parent who's got like a child with autism or something, and their kids just their kid will just love my videos, and they say thank you for making these videos. It's something that we really enjoy together, and hearing things like that, really confirms to me that, in a sense, I feel like sometimes I'm providing a service for people, and people take these videos and they do kind of all kinds of things with them. So yeah, that's been very rewarding for me, for sure. So,
yeah, I can definitely understand that. Just knowing, I do my daily weekday greetings, and I go to a lot of trouble to make sure I find one that's really nice for every specific day. And a lot of people, I don't know, they might think it's a bunch of fluff, but I get those occasional few people that actually take the time to thank me because they really look forward to seeing that positive post, and it makes them feel good. And just knowing that I've done that for one person just makes it worth it, so just multiply that a lot by all the work you put into the videos. Yeah, there's always going to be somebody that just gets so much out of it, appreciates it. Knowing that you helped even just one person so much really, really makes it worth it.
Absolutely. I think so. Yeah. You can totally understand what I'm saying from your own experience. It's, that positivity that you introduce into people's lives through what you've created. It's a nice feeling, to have that, well, to realize that that's what you've done. And, I definitely say that, yeah, that's part of the enjoyment and thrill of, I guess basically producing content online generally, but making these Lego movies and sharing them.
Anything positive and creative you can do is always a good thing, and especially for the young kids. A lot of people, have had it hard the past few years with COVID and everything, and they need these positive reinforcements and a creative way to, have that release, and they just need that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also in particular for young kids, I've had countless messages from parents where their kids have watched my videos, and they'll just then spend hours playing with their own Lego, and maybe try and recreate some scenes in my films, or even maybe try doing their own stop motion, and that's always great to see, because by watching my videos, it's inspiring these kids to go and be creative themselves. And it's actually to be able to introduce that, or be the reason for a kid to be more creative, it was quite humbling in a way. It's kind of, it's like we're saying, it's just a nice thing to see the outcome go in that particular way. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, one of the wonderful things about I guess we'll get into Barracuda Heist right now. Is are your ships? Are these Lego models, or your own kind of tweaks of them?
You must have a love for ships. A lot of your videos with the ships and everything. So.
Yeah, I love ships. Yeah, I have always loved ships. And I even got into sailing when I went to university. Shout out to the Lancaster University Sailing Club, who I still I'm in touch with many alumni members of. And yeah, I've always been fascinated with tall ships in particular. So, what you consider like your classic pirate ships, I guess. They're just fascinating, and all the history around them is fascinating. So I'm just trying to remember now I did my first pirate film way back. I think it was 2011, and it was like a third part to a police chase trilogy I was doing, which was kind of my first adventure in like doing action like films. And I had pretty good success with that. In fact, that was basically the reason I became a YouTube partner. And so I decided to end with a third installment with pirate ships. And I had such fun making that animation, and it was my most ambitious animation. And for that video, I seem to remember I had a, let me think now. I had the Pirates of the Caribbean Black Pearl ship, which is obviously going to be the pirate ship. And I modified that to have a proper deck. So I sort of raised the cabin and stuff. So what I'll often do is I'll take like a Lego set and modify it so that it will have all the kind of visual impact and then also features that are maybe needed for the film. And then for that particular production as well, so I think this is like Lego Police Chase Part 3 Pirate Sea Battle, I think it's called. I also had a custom-made ship built just from parts I bought. So, funnily enough, in preparation for that video, I ordered off eBay. It was called just Job Lot Pirate Lego. So it was just a big pile of pirate Lego. And when it arrived, I realised, because I didn't really know much about like what Lego pirate ships were available at the time, but I realised I actually had it was an original Black Seas Barracuda, which I think Lego released in like 1989 or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I got it very cheaply as well. I can't quite remember how much I spent, but it wasn't much. And so I actually reconstructed that original ship. And you'll notice in that film I've got Captain Redbeard and all the classic Lego pirates. But actually, I didn't use that ship in the film. I think I used the sails, and then my younger brother Jacob, who has helped me on countless of my countless number of my Lego animations with the building side of things, he designed the Imperial ship using the Black Seas Barracuda parts and using our own parts. I think he based it around. I think at that time Lego just released their own Imperial flagship, a huge model, and I think he based it a little bit around Lego's design, and so that was how we created the two ships for that film. And then more recently for the Barracuda heist, actually it was a case of when I was writing my thesis during lockdown, it was quite a challenging time, COVID was obviously all around the world, and everything was in lockdown. I couldn't really see anyone. I ended up buying myself the Barracuda Bay Lego set, kind of like a de-stressor, I guess. So, after writing a chapter of my thesis, I would build a part of that set. And I loved that set so much that even though at that time I had completely different ideas about what I was going to do for my Lego animation after my PhD, it completely convinced me that I should do another pirate film again. And I actually just basically took the Barracuda Bay ship model and I modified it slightly, but I basically kept it exactly the same. And I used that as one of the ships in the film. And then for the other ship, I thought, well, if this Lego ship that I'm going to be using in the film is a modern interpretation of the original Black Seas Barracuda, it only makes sense that the other ship in the film will be a modern interpretation of the original Caribbean Clipper, which was the Imperial ship that also I think came out in 1989 to oppose the Barracuda, the Black Seas Barracuda. So I ended up completely designing that ship from scratch. I think I had a little bit of help from my brother again. I think he came to stay with me for a little bit in Lancaster, and he helped me with that model. But yeah, that was completely scratch built.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah. So that's probably more detail you wanted, but that's the history of the ships used in all the Hamster productions. So
we love the details, and we love your ship battle, monster, whatever, brick films. They're awesome. You also, I guess, for some of the interior shots, you actually built just the interiors so you could animate. So you weren't actually animating the interiors of the large ships. You had a special interior shot. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So I think I figured out pretty early on when working with the ships that it's just so much easier to build a separate set for the interior shots, and you can add in more detail. So it's pretty routine now for me that whenever I do any sort of interior shots for any part of the set, what I will do typically is I will film the entire animation minus all the interior shots. Then I go back and think, right, I need to make the interior for this bit, and I'll probably find the model I use. And of course, at this point, I no longer need that external model, so I might break it up or maybe even just recreate it with whatever. And maybe if I need to make it a little bit larger, I can do that, or if I can add in a few more details, I'll do that. And yeah, that's helped a lot with the interior shots, and just makes life a lot easier. And I think the film's better to do that.
And in case it's not perfectly clear, we're speaking of the brilliant video, the Barracuda heist. It is so amazing in every way. I mean the amount of detail and that you put in there, and things that I've never seen in videos before. I love the wave shots and the way you did that, and
lots of brick film special effects.
Yeah, the brick filming special effects are always my favorite. I'm a old school kind of person. Yes. And love it.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, for saying that. I'm really pleased you liked the film.
Loved
and it
it.
Definitely was my most ambitious film. Yeah. And like I said, so this film was very much me bouncing off the end of my PhD. I had such a huge amount of creative energy that needed spending after years of studying for my PhD, where I wasn't really, other than the Lego film, I hadn't really had any creative output. So I just was so hyped to be working on animation again, and I decided I wasn't gonna take any shortcuts with it for the most part anyway. I was just gonna make what I wanted and try and put as much detail into it as I could. So I brick animated the waves. I put a lot of details into that film that I'm very proud of. One of which is that the ships, at least from a kind of pseudo-realistic point of view, actually follow the laws of sailing. So there is actually a wind direction, and all the movements of the boats can be explained from a sailing point of view, which is something that you never see in pirate films or sailing films in general. So I was very proud of that. And I've had a few nice comments from people who do sail, saying nice things about that. So yeah, I just decided, to pull out all the stops of that film and try and be as ambitious as possible. And I learned a lot from doing that film. So I'm really pleased. That you loved it.
Yeah, I know it was heartbreaking that it just didn't quite make it in time for our contest, because I'm pretty sure it would have been nominated for every category, and who knows how many it would have won.
I will definitely know for next time to make sure I enter my film into the into your competition.
But it's just so obvious how much work you put into it, and detail and love and fun and the behind the scenes. It's just it's amazing to watch, and I highly recommend seeing that after, because it's just,
You say don't listen to your instructions and things
But
like that at the
they're
beginning
so
of your
awesome.
disclaimer. But like, you know what? That's some sarcasm there because there's some really great tips in here.
Yeah, and so much of what you went through. Oh my gosh, I felt your pain when if you bumped into this, something fell over and it broke, and you could just feel the pain of what you went through. And also,
I mean, yeah. Sorry.
No, go on.
Yeah, so I tried to capture the whole journey because what's funny is actually when I started the Barracuda heist, I always used to animate in the summer when I was studying for my undergraduate degree at Lancaster again. I would always have these long summers that I could fill with doing animation, and I always managed to get it done on time. So, I'd be talking like, for example, the Kraken took me 2 months. I think it was like 2 months to film it and then maybe 1 month to edit it. And which is an incredible turnaround for a stop motion production. And so I kind of went into the Barracuda heist thinking like, this will probably take me a handful of months to do. And I couldn't have been more wrong. I think it ended up taking about twice as long as I expected. And we're talking like the best part of a year, basically. And it was a journey. And, I started the production during lockdown. So I was getting a lot of footage on my phone, as well as the behind the scenes footage. And when I was editing together the behind the scenes for the Barracuda heist, when I was looking, I just laid all the footage down on the timeline and I sorted it all out. And I just thought, like, I have to show this in the entire sort of. I wanted to show the whole story, so like the things that I had to go through in making it, not just what you see, kind of on the screen and the behind the scenes of that, but also a little bit about me and my life. And I think with that video, I'm really pleased that you said that you liked it and you're recommending to go watch it, because with that video, I could have probably like cut it down even more and made it maybe a little bit more, let's say, YouTube algorithm friendly. So, just showing like the main highlights and make a shorter video that's maybe a little bit more mainstream. But I just felt that I did really want to share the full details of the Barracuda heist. And so that's how it ended up being like half an hour long, and I'm very proud of that video, and I've had a lot of very nice comments about the video. So go watch it if you haven't.
Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, I was incorrect in what I said. I think it's more important to see the behind the scenes first, and going through that whole journey. And you really feel like you're a part of it. I mean, I felt like I was there with you, going through all the struggles and pains and everything. And I think watching it, so what you went through, and then leading up to it, and then including the release day, and then go and watch the video, because then it just like brings everything together, makes you love the video even more. It was just amazing. That was just the best behind the scenes journey I think I've ever seen.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. Something that didn't make it into the video, actually, which is quite funny, is when I uploaded it, for some reason, I don't know why I decided to do this, but I decided to upload it, I think, on a Thursday. And I think my idea was that, like, I'd try and capture that initial, I usually get a bit more traffic on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So I thought, like, I'll try and get that initial, weekend viewership. I'll get it out on Thursday to catch all that. But basically, I basically released it during kind of like the graveyard shift of YouTube, where like there wasn't really that many people, or at least many of my subscribers kind of active at that time. And so I got like a handful of comments when I first uploaded it. And bear in mind, this is after like months of work, so I was like, on the edge of my seat, like, what's the reaction going to be? And I saw like a handful of positive comments, but kind of, a little bit of a lukewarm reception. And I was just like, right, I can't do this. So I just turned everything off. I went to the swimming pool and I just swam for an hour. And then I came. I don't have my own swimming pool. I went to like the local swimming baths. I'll just say, but like I went to the local swimming pool. I swam for like an hour because you get such a like when you've worked on a project for so long, you get such a like intense feeling when you do release it on YouTube, and you're kind of hyper actively like following all the comments that are coming in and stuff. So I just like unplugged myself, went to the swimming baths, came back, and by that time I'd already received like a number of very, very positive comments, and that kind of settled me. And then of course the reaction since then has been extremely positive. But yeah, it was just I guess because I'd never really put so much work into an animation before, it was just like very intense almost when I did upload it. So yeah.
And I love, and I guess I think this was in the behind the scenes, the credits. They were very funny and a lot of fun to read. I loved that. Because when I saw the sauna and the pool, and then I saw in the credits, that was because I wondered if that was yours. And then I saw you gave credit to one of your friends. That was just that's a really neat thing to have, that the sauna and then that pool. I love that. I'd love to do that and have that.
Oh gosh, yeah. This is so I knew a lot of amazing people in Lancaster through through my studies at the university, and a lot of the people that did voice acting in the Barracuda heist, either have PhDs or were working on getting one. Samily, who voiced the shout out to Samily, he voiced the governor, and Samily has this very deep and commanding voice, so I knew he'd be absolutely perfect. He's from Finland, but he had this absolutely perfect voice for the governor. And he's a postdoc, he's a full-time academic, and it's just it's just amazing having all these like people who typically work in the world of physics and academia voicing for my Lego animation. That was just a lot of fun. And actually Dima again, who I worked with on the Lego cooling experiment, that was his sauna. So one thing you learn about the low temperature physics community, and I'm talking about the international low temperature physics community here, is that particularly in Europe, people are obsessed with the sauna. And I'm talking like traditional Finnish style sauna, where you pour water over hot rocks, you'll sit in the sauna, maybe have a chat, and then you'll jump in like a freezing cold pool. And I was introduced to this through people like Samily, who are from Finland. And if you didn't know, in Finland, sauna is like, people go to the sauna as regularly as people probably get coffee in America or in the UK. It's just something you do as your morning routine over there. And so Dima had one of these Finnish style saunas at his house. So quite often me and some of the other physicists would spend an evening having some nice food, going to the sauna, having some whiskey or whatever. And particularly at a time when things were just starting to open up after lockdown and there wasn't really much you could do still, but you were allowed to go to people's houses, that was actually like a big help for me, just kind of from a social life point of view, I guess, or like a relaxation point of view, that we could do that. So that's what you see just for a moment in the behind the scenes of the Barracuda house. You see me jumping.
Yeah, I loved it. And it's supposed to be really, really good for your health, the saunas. They're becoming more and more popular. And so I'm curious now if the Finnish, if they're healthier in general because of that, because it's such a normal thing for them. I wonder if they're healthier overall. Well,
that's a very good question. I mean, I'd have to ask Samily. I wouldn't. I don't know enough to say anything conclusively, but my guess would probably be that yes, I think they are quite healthy over there, yeah, I don't know again because I'm probably basing this off the one Finnish person I know, again, Samuli, but he's definitely someone who he loves sauna, he loves the outdoors, he loves good cooking, good food. And I would definitely say he's probably someone who lives a very healthy lifestyle. So maybe he is a typical Finnish man. I don't know.
Well, it was a lot of fun to watch. And then also you had the test screening at Lancaster University, and that must have been a lot of fun because I know seeing your video on the big screen and having people watch it is a very surreal experience, which we've experienced once, and that must have been a lot of fun and for you.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. In fact, I was probably more nervous for that than I was when I uploaded it to YouTube, because at that point, not a single person had seen the Barracuda heist from beginning to end. So when I had the voice actors round, actually, this is quite a funny story. I invited my colleagues round one at a time to do the voice acting. So just be like one evening at a time. I'd have someone round, and we would, go through what they needed to do, and I would show them little clips, to help them kind of visualize what kind of sound effect they need to make, basically. So I'd be like, oh yeah, this person's fighting this person, or maybe like, this person's reacting to this in a particular way, and I might give a little bit of context, and I would show just that little clip from the Barracuda heist. And of course, these people all worked at the physics department, so one at a time. I only found out about this later, but basically during their lunch break or whatever, they'd of course be talking like, oh yeah, I was at Josh's studio and we recorded this thing and my character does this. And one at a time, that with each, person that came along and did their bit, they started to try and piece together the story based on the fact that they knew which character they interacted with, and they were like, hang on a minute, but then we meet at this point, but then you meet him at that point, and so they started to like try and piece together the film, and I think it started to dawn on my friends just how complicated this film actually was going to end up being. So I thought that amused me when I found out about that later. But then, yeah, so Dima again came through for me, and he booked out the lecture theatre for me. And, I invited all my Lancaster friends. And at this point, things were, this was the end of 2021, so, or towards the end of 2021. So things were pretty relaxed restriction-wise. So, we were all free to go into the lecture theatre and watch it. And I was so nervous. I mean, I was probably even shaking a little bit just because no one had seen the film really at all, other than those little clips. And, when you've worked on something for so long, you do think, obviously I thought the film was good and I was happy with it, but you do wonder, like, wait a minute, but what if I am, what if it's not good to the general, it's just me? Maybe I've become too, like, I don't know, when you work on a project for a long time, you're not looking at it with fresh eyes anymore.
Right.
So I started to, like, maybe even doubt myself, just like, I don't know what the reaction's going to be to this. Maybe they're going to think it's rubbish or whatever. These are the kind of things you tell yourself in this, like, panicky moment before you're about to show it to, like, 30 of your closest friends in Lancaster in this particular case. And anyway, I calmed down and we ran the film, and it was such a great experience. I mean, people were laughing, at the right points. The little jokes I included, obviously people were finding funny. And people were reacting in the way that I because I was kind of sat at the back, so I could kind of see everyone in a way, and it was just nice to see those reactions come in. And at the end, I got a round of applause, and we all went for a drink afterwards, and we just spent the whole evening just basically discussing the film. And I had such nice comments from people, and just the whole experience was great. And in fact, I now know that for all my future projects, I would like to do some form of screening before I upload it to YouTube, just because I think it's such a rewarding experience, and not something that I think a lot of YouTubers do experience, and I think they should, is when you've worked on something for a long time, you should try and get that more personal screening, maybe even if it's just family or friends or whatever, because it's nice to do, and maybe you can get a little bit of feedback before you do upload it to YouTube. So yeah, that whole thing was just a lot of fun. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and you can see that, and then plus it's also a which you can also see from behind the scenes. It's such a huge plus when you are able to work with the person who's doing the voicing, because then you can tell them exactly how you want them to say it. You know, it's like, no, do it a little bit more like this or a little bit more like that. And it's nice when you're able to do that. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, for quite a few of the people I was working with, what we'd do is we'd record it, and I'd give like a little bit of direction, and after a few attempts, we would stop the recording. I would just export that immediately from Audacity, put it into the timeline, and we'd see what it looked like in the film, you know, perhaps with the music and sound effects as well. And, you know, together we kind of decided, you know, what worked and what didn't. And I think that helped a lot. And, you know, if I'm being honest, they all did such a phenomenal job, particularly because none of them had really done voice acting ever before. Now, I did, like I mentioned with Samily, I did choose people based on what I knew, how I knew their voice could be used in the film. But yeah, they all did such an amazing job. Yeah.
Were any of your brothers in it at all?
You know what? Funnily enough, for this one, no. I don't know. I'll have to think about that maybe for some future ones. I don't know whether they would like being a voice actor, if I'm being perfectly honest. But you know, maybe you know, to be honest, I've never asked, so maybe I'll ask.
Well, I know sorting Lego is not a fun job, and the fact that your brother helped you through that, I feel like, you know, at least if he wanted to voice here, have a little voice in that, it's the least, you know, let him do that. But he is in the video though, so that was nice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing. So yeah, with the Barracuda High, so Jacob wasn't around when I was filming it during the post-production stages, because at that point he was studying as an architect. But earlier, when it was like I think it was like end of 2020, so we were in heavy lockdown. He actually came to stay, so he was in my quarantine bubble, as it were, at the time. And we actually had such a great time, because at this point I was still wrapping up my physics PhD and my thesis. But kind of in my downtime, we had just such a great time, you know, going to IKEA, getting furniture in to sort the Lego, because I knew I was going to be working on this big pirate production, you see. And I wanted all the Lego sorted in time. So, you know, we'd put some music on and just get sorting the Lego. And we had quite a considerably large collection at this point, and it was no small task to get it organized and into a proper sorting system. But I would say mainly thanks to Jacob. I think, to be honest, he did probably the bulk of the work. We got it all sorted out, and ever since, you know, I've kept the sorted Lego system maintained. I will say it's incredibly satisfying having the Lego like organized. It's something that I'd wanted to do for years and years, and thanks to Jacob, that is now a reality. So yeah.
That's really nice though, that the brotherly bonding during that difficult time. It's nice that you were able to do that together. I bet your mom, from a mother's perspective, I bet she was thrilled to know that.
Yeah, no, I think Jacob had been at home in our hometown, because like when lockdown happened, his university stuff had to go on pause for a year, I think. So and he'd been at home for a while, but I think it was a nice, like, it broke things up that he could come and like help me on my next animation project. And from my point of view, it was great having him around. And yeah, I think our mum probably was happy with the arrangement too, for sure.
And what is your system for sorting?
So I do it by parts, not color. And it's probably, dude, what's funny about it actually is I went into it thinking like that there are some well-established sorting systems that exist on the internet, and you can download like classifications for Lego bricks and how you should sort them. And I started off thinking like I'm going to try and stick to one of these, but actually what I discovered was especially if you've been playing with Lego for a long time, you already kind of have a way of distinguishing different kinds of bricks in your mind already. And it's better just to stick to what you kind of naturally want to sort things as than following some system from someone else. That's what I discovered pretty early on. So what we ended up doing is we actually just, whenever I had like a cereal box or an ice cream box, so I finish a tub of ice cream or whatever, instead of recycling or throwing away the boxes, we just put them into a big larger box for Lego storage. So suddenly I was collecting all these like maybe like even milk cartons. I'd just cut the top off and that would be perfect for storing Lego in. And within a few months we had like a considerable number of containers. And we just by part would put them into these different containers, and I got like a set of IKEA cabinets. I already had a few drawers that I use for electronic components, but I've not really touched my electronics in a long time, at least at that time anyway. So I just put all the electronics somewhere else, and I started using that for Lego sorting. And yeah, like I'm looking at it right now. Actually, I'm in my studio as we do this podcast, and it's just sort of a kind of convoluted set of cabinets and drawers, but it's a system that I know where everything is, and when it comes down to it, that's what matters. So
yeah, I'm definitely a fan of sort by part. I used to sort by color, and it would take me forever to find what I'm looking for. I can generally find what I'm looking for very quick because I just know it's by part, and then I look for the color within the part area, and I find the stuff so fast.
Absolutely. So I agree with that completely. Did you find there was any benefit to sorting by color at all? There must be like pros and cons, right?
Yeah, it's real easy. You just look for the color and you throw it all in one box.
Yeah, I suppose for like the actual like sorting, it's very simple.
It's just that. So now you're looking for something basically within camouflage. You're looking at for one part that's within a whole bunch of parts of the same color, so it's not standing out like a sore thumb. So it's once I switched over, I love sorting by part. It's just saves so much time on builds.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the thing. So when you're building, I mean, it's so useful. I'm just trying to remember. I was going to say something, but I completely forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, since sorting the Lego, my life has been a lot easier, and in fact, I've been able to make much more impressive like sets for the animations because I actually have access to my Lego collection in a way that I didn't before. So for example, the Barracuda heist, that was my most ambitious set at the time, and that would not have been possible to make had the Lego not had some degree of sorting beforehand. So I feel like that was absolutely essential for that production.
We're fighting over who says what, and this is probably way out of order, totally off topic here, but seeing the behind the scenes, it made my back hurt because are you very tall or are your tables very short? Because it looked like you were having to bend so much. It reminds me
it's something that I'm working on. Probably, I am very tall. Well, I'm 6'2". I'm 6'.
Oh, that's tall. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'll be honest, it can be challenging, animating when you're that tall, especially if you're standing up a lot. I try to kneel a lot when I animate, or at least I did a lot for the Barracuda House. I had a kneeling kind of mat, and that helped a lot because you can keep your back straight and whatever. But I think the problem is that when you're animating, as soon as you take that first image, suddenly it's like the whole studio is in a sort of kind of lockdown where you can't touch anything. So you can't touch the camera, you can't touch the table, you can't touch the set. You can only touch what you're animating. And if you knock something, it could be game over for the shot. So maybe I should be kind of anchoring down things better than I am. But basically, I do a lot of weird kind of, when I'm walking around, I'm very careful how I walk around things. I kind of bend over so I'm not touching anything instead of just, perhaps going in a sort of in a kind of with a better posture, I suppose. Yeah, that's something that I'm learning all the time. And yeah, I probably should be more careful with making sure I'm comfortable when I'm animating. So that's definitely something I'm going to think about more.
Yeah. I'm pretty lucky with my space. It's on concrete, so I don't have to worry about the floor moving at all.
That's nice.
And I built these tables that are, this is an English or American measurements, but a 4 foot by 8 foot table that's 4 foot tall, 0.3 meters or so. So I don't have to lean quite over as much, but and my floor is nice and hard. And plus, I don't normally use a tripod much. I usually just put the camera on the table and sticky tack it so it doesn't move around. But there are definite benefits to using a tripod.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've actually, funnily enough, on the way to this, to doing this podcast, on the way to my studio, there's a camera shop I pass on the way here. I just popped in today, and I've just bought it was very cheap. It was only £5, and it's kind of like a clamp that I can clamp to the table, and it has a camera compatible ball jointed screw on the top, so nice. I can just sort of connect the camera to that and put it at any angle that I need. And I'm thinking maybe for like close-up shots or, anything where I can actually get the camera on the table, I might start using that. Because, like you say, I think if the camera is on the table, there's a much less to worry about with knocking things. But historically, I have used a tripod. I think as well, I don't know, I've just found it works for me, especially if I'm doing like a shot where you're seeing a lot of the set. So the camera's got to be way back from the set to get everything into frame. And in those particular shots, I need the tripod. And yeah, like a lot of I'm always trying to include more like cinematography techniques with each animation I make, and camera movements and using sliders and things. I just find that on the tripods, it works just a little bit better than if I tried to do it on the table. But it could just be that I have the wrong equipment for doing it on the table. Maybe this clamp will change things. I don't know. But yeah, I just I at the moment I do use a tripod. Yeah.
Okay.
That camera slider looked really cool though.
Use that for a lot of your horizontal dolly shots, but you got it set for doing vertical as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. So in the Barracuda Heist, I attempted a vertical. I don't know if you'd call it a dolly shot if it's vertical, but like a tracking shot.
Yeah, I got you.
Where the camera, I don't know if you remember, it's essentially there's a scene where you see these Imperial soldiers, they're shooting at the ship as it's being launched, and the camera tracks down and you see the chains connecting the ship to the dock. And to achieve that shot, I had an extremely cheap a tripod that had a crank that you could get this like vertical motion, and it was awful. I remember with each crank, so between each frame, I'd crank it maybe just like by one increment, and the camera would just be completely wonky from the previous image. So I'd have to manually kind of try and get the camera aligned with the previous image. And I think I just about pulled it off. However, for my next production, sorry, I should also then say for the horizontal tracking shots, I had a camera slider, and that was a lot easier. I just simply measured it out using a ruler. I moved it maybe 1 millimeter each frame, and got like a nice horizontal tracking or dolly shot. Now for my next production, I've been very fortunate because I actually have my studio set up amongst a community of creative freelancers, essentially, here in Liverpool. So there are people here who do all kinds of stuff. They make all kinds of things. And so one of my neighbors who runs his own, essentially kind of like, he can make anything basically, but he runs his own business. It's called Mulberry Workshop. So shout out to Jamie from Mulberry Workshop. He has actually taken my camera slider that I used in my last video and upgraded it so that it has a kind of geared thread that runs along it. So I can turn this knob and with each full 360-degree turn, the camera moves by 1 millimeter along the track. So I now have very precise control of these tracking shots. And not only that, but it actually holds the weight of the camera, so I can mount this vertically, attach the camera on kind of at a right angle, and I can get a nice vertical pan using the exact same equipment.
Oh, that's
so
sweet.
Yeah, that's been I don't know, it's been really cool to like get help from other kind of small businesses, I guess, and come up with solutions. And it's kind of like it's my own little custom camera rig that I have now. So
do you do any push and pull shots with it, so the camera's going closer to the subject or away?
I'm trying to incorporate that more because I think they look really good. And I did have a few push and pull shots in the Barracuda heist. There's like moments of, it really captures like moments of realization, or like sort of, it just almost heightens the drama when you have these like shots where the camera's physically moving towards somebody. So, like for example, when the captains of the ships are saying fire, I had these like push, I guess you call them push shots, where the camera goes right up towards them. And I'm definitely going to include that in my next film for sure.
Yeah, I noticed those. And do you have it with the slider? Does it stay good on track? Because I tried a push or a pull shot on one of my last videos, and I was having to adjust the camera after every pulling the camera out a little bit. It was a little pixel off, and I just have to keep bumping it and to get it correct. Did the slider keep it in a good place? Where you didn't have to play around with the camera much?
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're experiencing is exactly what I experienced with my vertical tripod crank, where like basically I think whatever axis the camera's moving on, you need equipment where there's going to be no give in any other like, I guess, spatial dimension. And so luckily for me, my slider, it was only a cheap one I got off Amazon. But it basically, it slides in one direction. I think there's ways you can adjust the wheel so it has quite a nice tight tolerance and doesn't really rock at all. It's definitely not perfect, but it serves its purpose well, and I think I was happy enough with the results. So that I'm gonna continue using it, and now it's been upgraded, especially. It's been working great, so I'm definitely gonna
look forward to those shots. Now, animating things as big as a Lego ship you obviously have to have a little extra room. If I saw correctly, did you start your animation in one room for Barracuda Heist and then have to move just because it wasn't big enough, or did I see that correct?
Yeah, you've paid very good attention to that film. That is a very good point. Just one second, I'm just gonna have some water.
No worries.
Yeah, so basically, where I was living in Lancaster at the time, I had there was like 2 bedrooms in the property. So there was the main bedroom, which was like a large size bedroom, and then there was like kind of the second bedroom, but it was barely even that. It was basically just a little square room, and I was like, that's where the studio will go. Of course, that's big enough for a studio, right?
Of course.
So of course, what possible problem could there be? So I sort of had the Lego building in the larger bedroom, which I was still using as a bedroom, and then like the where I was filming would be in the smaller bedroom. And I think I'd got to sort of past the first act of animation, so I'd done the entire sort of first sequence where the ship's getting launched. I think up to just before you see the big splash, and I'd somehow managed to do that in that tiny room. I really don't know how I really pulled that off, but I did pull it off. And it very quickly became apparent that if I was to continue doing this, I would need more space. And so I came to the reluctant conclusion that I was going to have to make the small room my bedroom and make the large room just the studio. And so with help from a very good friend of mine, Leo, who was also studying for his PhD at the time, he came round, and together we moved all the stuff out of the studio. I think we might put it downstairs. We took my bed and we put it in this like tiny bedroom, and basically the room, there was no room. It was just a bed. So it's like the walls were basically just around the bed. I think I managed to fit in like a bedside table as well, but like basically you couldn't even close the door.
Oh my goodness!
it was just a bed in this room, and but this is just the kind of sacrifices I make for my production. So I then put everything in the large bedroom, and from that point on, it was so much easier to film. And it's and it, to us, it wasn't an issue because at that time I had my own place in Lancaster. I had my own little terrace house, and so I was fine sleeping in the small room. But it was just quite funny when I told friends and family about this, and they just saw my bedroom was just this tiny like box room with with the bed going from one wall to the other. So yeah, anyway, that's how I lived for a number of months as I was filming.
And was your table large enough to truly animate, or do you have to kind of do some extra configuring to be able to get enough space?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I got this large dining table that could extend, that probably is not designed for stop motion in any way, shape or form, but it was pretty sturdy. So I was like, this will do. It was this kind of like large oval shape, and like I sort of said with the small room, when I started, I was like, this is plenty big enough, there's no way I need more than this. And then obviously halfway into the production, I realized that I did need more than what that table was offering. But I just came up with a number of tricks to get round any issues, certainly when I was trying to get both ships in the frame. And maybe I was trying to get both ships and like the bay sets, all in one frame. And what I would do is I would put the table kind of, instead of it being, let's say, if you imagine you've got like the backdrop, which is the sky, and you've got the table in front of that, the table can kind of either be like landscape along kind of the sky backdrop, or it can kind of be portrait. So it's like it comes out towards you a lot further, but it's thinner, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
And so, yeah, okay, good. So when I was doing like a shot where I was trying to get a lot into the frame, I would do it in the portrait kind of mode, and I'd put the camera really low. So actually, if you go back to Barracuda Heist, you'll notice the camera's always low when there's a lot of stuff in the scene. And that's because when you put the camera low, the bits where the table would kind of disappear off and you just sort of see the room, because the table's getting so close to the camera, that bit's covered. And so you kind of made a horizon by having the camera at this low angle. And then I could put things either close to the camera on the table, or I could put it way to the back. And then another trick I did was I bought these incredibly useful TV dinner, like little tables. You know, you sort of, the kind of table you could put up in like your TV room and eat your dinner in front of the TV. These were absolutely perfect because they were the perfect height, and they were just little tables. You know, maybe they'd only fit like an A3 piece of paper on them, or maybe something a little bit bigger than that. But I could literally put that kind of just off the main table with the ocean on it, and I could use little Lego stilts to hold things up. So I think, again, I do show this in the behind the scenes video. You'll see sometimes when the ships are moving way in the background, they're actually off the table on Lego stilts, on these little like side tables that were really useful. Now, so that's what I did for the Barracuda Heist. That's not necessarily what I'm doing now. I've again upgraded my table based on what I have available where I work. And there's this huge sheet of MDF just going to be chucked out because, like I said, there's a lot of people who make a lot of different things, and occasionally materials are just going free. So I managed to get an absolutely huge, thick piece of MDF, and I got it cut to size, and I've just put that on top of the same table I use in the Barracuda Heist. And this is working very perfectly for what I need, because I've got a lot of space to build the set on. And not only that, it doesn't move unless you really give it some, force, but you can quite easily, with a bit of force, actually just spin it on top of the table that it's on. And so I can very easily rotate the set and get the perfect angle that I need without having to move the whole table or do anything like that. So having this like large sheet of MDF has solved a lot of these issues that I kind of had to bodge in the last production. So that's been a really good improvement on my studio.
Nice. Now, see, this is another huge advantage to seeing the behind the scenes to the Barracuda Heist is that you see how much work you put into it, and you see how things are done, which is really cool because you don't realize it when you're watching it, but to see how it was actually done is such a really cool addition to appreciating how much work went into making it. Like I said, the one of the big things for me was the waves and how you did that. Now, was that something you saw, or did you just think of that yourself? Because I've never seen that before. It's really cool.
That's a good question. Have I seen some of that before? So I knew that I needed to do a splash. That was, I had this. In fact, when I was coming up with the whole film story, the first thing I had in my mind was that sequence where the ship is launched into the bay. So that was really the starting point. So from the beginning, I knew I needed this like dramatic splash when the ship crashes into the bay. And I'm just trying to remember how I came up with it. I think it just came to me quite naturally that I should animate it with Lego bricks. I think maybe the Lego movie was an inspiration, because I know in that movie, everything, including the explosions, gunfire, whatever, the sea, that was all done, or visualized with Lego. Even though that was obviously like CGI, everything was Lego. If you pause that film at any moment, it's all Lego. So I think that was perhaps part of the inspiration. And then I was also aware that there are a lot of people online who animate a lot of things. So it was quite easy to kind of Google splash animation or whatever. And I had I kind of had like a mood board in front of me of different splash animations people had done. And then I just started drawing my own. I can't remember if I showed it in the behind the scenes film, but in my, I sort of have a logbook as I'm doing these films. And I was just planning out how I'd do the splash. And so then I knew as well that, it's going to be a constantly moving thing. So I decided just to build it out of like big Lego bricks because I needed it to be big, not necessarily detailed. So that's how I came up with that. And a funny story with that is another one of my Lancaster physics friends, also someone who's doing his PhD, shout out to Ash. He came round once. He had to stay over because he wasn't living in Lancaster at that time. And I was showing him what I was doing, and I showed him, all these frames of splashes that I'd made. I must have had about 15 of these splashes, all built up. And, I was showing him, I was like, I'm going to replace them one at a time, and it's going to make this splash effect. He's like, oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. And when he saw the film, he was just like, yeah, I saw the splash, but it didn't last very long, did it? Because he'd seen all the work I'd put into it, and it was just like, it's over in like 1 second. I was just like, yeah, that's the nature of animation, that's just, I've just got to live with that.
Yes, but it took me hours to do that little thing. That's the
yeah, it was quite funny how it just literally like poof, and then it's over. But it's all about the attention to detail, I think. So
absolutely.
And like you say, it's obviously something that you've picked up on, and I've had a number of people mention like they really liked the Lego effects. So I'm glad that I did it.
And didn't you make the sails yourself as well?
Oh gosh, yeah, I did make the sails myself. So obviously with the Barracuda, the Barracuda, the Black Sea's Barracuda, ship, I had all the sails already pre-made by Lego. Can I just say as well, what a phenomenal job they did of redesigning that ship. It was really an impressive model. And so that was all sorted. But then, of course, I needed the sails for the Caribbean Clipper redesign that I did. And so I quite easily got the cloth material. But unlike the Lego material, it was quite flappy. It was quite almost soft. And so when I put the sails on, well, what I'll say actually is I basically based the sail shape off the Lego version. So I simply... oh, hang on. No, that's not true. I tried to base it on the Lego version, but I realized that I wanted slightly bigger sails, I think. So I found an excellent tutorial. I think the YouTube channel is called Mock Your Bricks. And I unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the guy who runs that channel, but he makes incredible Lego ships. Maybe one of the best Lego ship designers out there on YouTube. And he has made an incredible tutorial on how to make your own sails, so specifically for Lego ships. So I used his technique for designing sails, and it's all to do with you measure out your mast, and it's called the yard arms, the horizontal beams. You measure those out, and then you can sort of draw out this nice shape. So I made a paper version of the sails, and then I used them to cut out from the fabric that I bought. It's quite easy to get on eBay, like stripy fabric or whatever. And so I then came across another problem, which is that they kind of just drooped because they were very soft, unlike the Lego ones that are kind of almost like a papery material that kind of hold their shape. And so that's when I came up with the idea of having a fan always blowing on those sails in whatever direction the wind was meant to be going in that particular scene. So that was like a little bit challenging. It's like another thing that I had to always like make sure I didn't bump or whatever. But I would literally set up this fan with any shot that involved the blue ship, and I used that to sort of fill out the sails. And actually, I think it looked quite good because between each frame, the sails kind of moved a little bit, and it almost felt like you could see the wind. So
yeah, absolutely. In fact, you answered the question of how you did that. I was curious because they did look like they were blowing in the wind. It was amazing.
Thank you. Well, now you know they literally were blowing in an artificial wind. So that's how that was done, and I think it helped as well because obviously I'd planned it all out to sort of have some, like I said, some sort of pseudo-realistic sailing. So there always actually was a wind direction anyway. So it was quite kind of satisfying in a way to actually set that up and include those dynamics. And you might notice sometimes when they change tack or whatever, or if they're going, there's quite a lot of times when the ships go across the wind. So that means that the ship's actually facing directly into the wind, which you do when you're changing from one tack to the other. And in that case, actually, the wind's blowing backwards on the sails. So you'll notice there's a few moments where the sails actually pop backwards to reflect that before they then catch the tack as they come round. So doing that was actually quite fun for me. And a lot of people said to me, like, why on earth are you going to such lengths to include something that most people aren't going to pick up on? But I do think that I quite often when I'm making these films, I like to include things almost for myself. I enjoy doing that, so I decided to include that.
Well, I don't know if the right word is physics for it, but the physics of sailing or the tactics of sailing, you were basic. It was like watching real boats on water. It was,
definitely.
That are actually sailing and they're having to go, do the tacking back and forth, and it was just that detail was just incredible. It wasn't just you weren't pushing Legos around your table. You were thinking about, well, what would the wind be doing?
That goes with everything too, with the scene where the ship falls down the ramp. I mean, everything was so incredibly thought out and detailed. Just absolutely brilliant.
That pause before the ship gets enough weight to go down.
You could just feel the weight of the ship. Yeah, just amazing.
Yeah.
What an experience.
Thank you so much. I do pride myself on like trying to get the action to come across well on the screen, and it's definitely something that I'm always learning about, and I like to think that I am always improving. There's definitely a few things about the Barracuda heist that if I would do it again, I would improve. But I do. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's because I studied physics or anything, but I have an understanding of physics that I think occasionally surfaces when I'm thinking about how would things operate in reality, and how can I reflect that in the film. But actually, I say that a lot of animators, learn these things anyway. So they learn about easing and acceleration, and people talk about animating and when things feel like they have weight to them, and that is essentially when you're trying to incorporate just a little bit of like physics realism into the film. So animators do this anyway, regardless of their experience of physics. But I think coming from a physics background and also coming from a sailing background, because I've had my fair share of experience, not sailing tall ships or anything, but of smaller boats. I love to include these things in my films, and I'm really appreciative of what you said, because when I'm actually assuming here that you guys haven't been sailing. Maybe you have. I don't know.
I have not.
I have, but a long time ago.
Okay. So, but basically, what I was going to say is that, like, I was thinking, even if someone's watching this video and they don't know anything about sailing, seeing the boats move the way they do, and seeing, like you mentioned, people pulling the ropes, pulling down the sails, tacking across the wind, I think even if you've got no experience of sailing, you can still pick up that there's something more to it than just boats sliding around on water in any direction that they please. I think so I felt like it benefits the film for everybody, not just people who are like, oh, I understand what's happening here. It's I think it just adds a little bit more like
realism.
Realism, to and maybe a little bit more depth to the movie than if I hadn't have done that. So that was kind of again the logic behind planning it out, because I did have to then plan out basically an entire, I think in my logbook somewhere there is the entire kind of naval battle plan written out like a sailing diagram. And that was actually an excellent reference for me, because of course the whole thing takes place inside this enclosed harbour. And so, when you watch the film, you'll notice that it starts off at the bay, and over time it gets kind of closer and closer to the entrance to the harbour. And that kind of very naturally happens as you're watching it. And I'm really pleased with how that kind of develops. And it all kind of comes about from the fact that I had it written down on a piece of paper where the ships were. So I knew how far away the barriers should be for any given shot. I knew how far all the different parts of the set should be. And so that basically almost simulates a larger set than I could physically fit in the studio. Even though I was using a much smaller actual physical set. So I don't know. I guess if I'm being perfectly honest, I had a lot of fun doing that and planning that out. Yeah. Was
this the first one you used lighting other than, because I think you were using natural lighting in your old studio at your in the attic that was so hot. Was this the first one with lighting, or did you?
It's probably my first one with like proper lighting. Yeah, I like to say that the New York film, The Great Getaway, that I did in I think 2017, that was probably my first film with decent lighting, because it all took place indoors. So for that film, I actually just completely blocked out all the natural light and I just used lamps. And there's just a couple of scenes from outdoors, and I think I got some special white lights for that. But the Barracuda heist looks a lot better because I was using softbox lights, and I had 2 of them, and they were much brighter. And oh my gosh, the attic. So for a long time, I was animating the attic, and the attic studio, it had a lot of vibe. It was quite cool, animating up there. I mean, there were definitely issues, like the temperature was, because it would be during my summer holidays, I'd be up there and it was absolutely boiling. And part of the problem I had was I simply wouldn't be able to have animated up there with the windows open. Maybe some people, if I had an aircon, maybe it would have been fine, but it trust me, it didn't have aircon. It doesn't even have insulation. So, that wasn't an option. I would open the windows, and it was my most commented kind of, when you get like constructive criticism, which I always appreciate, I would always get this comment of, you need to stop with the natural lighting, because I'll be honest, the lighting was terrible. I mean, if you look at the Lego Kraken, which is actually my most popular video, the lighting's awful. It's just fluctuating all the time. I remember when I was animating that, it was crazy. I would be animating, and suddenly there'd be this massive change in brightness. And I'd look out the window. I'd go to the back of the attic. I'd look up out the window, and there'd just be this huge grey cloud that had appeared. And I'd be like, right, well, I can't continue animating until that cloud's passed. So I'd just be like, like stood there with a cup of tea or whatever, looking at the clouds, like waiting for them to pass, looking at Dragon Frame, waiting for like the image contrast to be, passable, and then I continue animating. So that was quite surreal. I'd just be spending a lot of time just looking at the clouds. Maybe there was a better way of doing things, but I think, for me at that point as well, like I kind of just enjoyed doing it my own way and making the films kind of from a, I guess, more hobby point of view. So wasn't really that bothered that it was quite rough around the edges in terms of lighting, and I'd say even the stop motion style was quite rugged. There's certainly a lot of people out there who really perfect their stop motion, their animation technique, I would say. And, so in terms of like the techniques involved, I think there's a lot of people out there who make much better animations than I do. But I think what I had going for me back then, and I'd say probably now as well, is that I just make these films that are quite, the subject matter is usually quite ambitious. So whether it be sea monsters or huge naval battles, or the one I'm working on at the moment, it's like a medieval, it takes place in a medieval castle, and there's going to be this huge like battle sequence. These are quite ambitious kind of settings, I guess, for films. And so I think what I always have worked on more than anything is what is the content, not necessarily what are my techniques. And so, yeah, I think I'm definitely like content led as an animator, if that makes sense.
It does, but I, like I said, I love your attention to detail and your brick filming effects. Well, staying on the Lego Kraken, like the swimming in the water effect was amazing.
Yeah.
You really are great with water. The cannons and the gun firing, I mean, those were all just beautifully done and affected. I mean, you could just see your attention to detail on that. The Kraken mock design.
How did you design that?
So the Kraken, yeah, I'm just trying to remember now. I can't remember how I decided on red as the colour for the Kraken, the red and white. But that's now become... I can't remember whether that was already kind of an iconic Lego octopus colour scheme, or whether it's become an iconic Lego colour scheme in part due to the Kraken video. But now I've noticed that quite a lot of people, when they do like their own Kraken Lego video or a Lego octopus, it is often red and white. I don't know where that came from. I don't know what inspired me to do that. Maybe it's from something else previously. But I had the colour scheme in mind already. And I designed the arms just using the pieces I had. We had like a little bit of Lego sorted, and I kind of made this sort of prototype out of all kinds of different colours. And, it held its weight. It's certainly... For that time, it was the most complicated like puppet that I'd ever made for a stop motion, even though it was just like one arm. And then so I came up with the design for this arm, and it had enough joints, and I felt like it was going to be able to achieve the things that I needed for the film. And so I just ordered on Bricklink enough pieces to make it in the right color scheme, and 8 of them. So I had all this Lego arrive from Bricklink, and I made all those up. And then the actual head, I had my brother design that. So Jacob designed that. And he did cheat a little bit, but he used blue tack basically to hold the whole thing together. But of course, for an animation, and it was only going to be in for like a couple of scenes, that's absolutely fine, and it worked fantastically. And it even had movable teeth, so I had like when the barrel goes in its mouth, you can see it kind of sort of eat it a little bit. And that's how we came up with that. I do remember with hindsight, and I think this is the first time I've ever mentioned this, I have a little bit of regret that I didn't actually like atomically correctly replicate a squid, or like a giant squid or a giant octopus, or I forget the name of that classification of animal. Its eyes should have actually been behind its legs, but I sort of had this like weird cylinder sort of come up between all 8 legs with the eyes on that. So, but it's a monster. It's a mythical monster. I guess that's fine. And no one's ever, I think, commented on that. But if there's one thing I could change about that video, I would make it more anatomically correct, if that's the right word.
There. Did you use any software or anything to help design, or did you design it on paper? Or?
I I just designed it on my table with bricks. So I just started building and rebuilding. And actually, that's, to be honest, how I designed most of my models. I did have a Lego designer software at some point, but I kind of have a rule, and this actually extends to a lot of things in my life, which is that if I can do it without needing digital, like a screen, like if I can do it without you needing a computer or my phone, then I do that way. That I do that method instead of. I kind of like to do things with as little screen time as possible if I can. So yeah, I just put the bricks on the table and start designing that way.
Well, I love the design of it.
Yeah, same. And I wouldn't
you.
have known that it was. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have known that it was not anatomically correct. So we can like edit that whole part out, and nobody will even know.
Okay, yeah, maybe that could just be our secret. I don't mind if you leave that in. I don't mind if you leave that in, but yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah.
So I want to go to the Great Gateway because you're getaway. Sorry, yeah, brain issues.
No worries.
You're like, and I know I keep saying this, but I love brick filming effects so much, and it just goes through all of your videos. In the Great Getaway, there are some just amazing, beautiful effects in there that I noticed. Like I said, I'm not a brick filmer, so when I notice something that to me it really stands out. I loved the whole bar scene. I thought the whole scene was just beautiful. And plus also your choice of music really works so well in everything that you do. And it's it's important. So music is important when you don't have
Now, are there there's two versions of The Great Getaway, correct? One with the original music you had, and then you changed it to where it wasn't copywritten music. Is that correct?
Yeah. That is absolutely correct, Dave. And that was actually that's one of the more challenging things about learning to be a YouTuber was learning what I could and couldn't get away with in terms of music copyright. Now I'm pretty good at it, and I know I've got good sources for music, and I know where to license music from. But certainly when I released The Great Getaway, I was still kind of learning what I could and couldn't get away with. And I found this jazz song. I knew that I wanted, an original, 1930s jazz piece to start the film off, to really set the tone. And I will say as well that I think the music, like you mentioned, Kim, the music is incredibly important in films in general, but also like we're saying without dialogue, I think it can actually really make or break the film depending on what song choices you make. Yeah. So I've always put a lot of time into trying to secure good tracks for my films. And one of the advantages of stop motion taking so long is I have a lot of time to do that. So I'll often be, between shots or whatever, I might look around, or over the period of creating the movie, I find the music I'm going to be using. Anyway, back to The Great Getaway. I found this jazz piece, and I was pretty confident that it was over 100 years old. Actually, thinking about it now, that couldn't be correct because I made that film in 2017, and I don't think there were many jazz recordings at all from before 1917. So I probably made a complete error there. But I kind of assumed that it was either in the public domain or the copyright owners were just simply not active. Because I couldn't find any information about who the copyright holders were for this jazz piece. And I think I found the recording. There was this wonderful YouTuber. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name, but they would upload all these recordings of a gramophone playing these like classic original jazz records. So that's where I found the recording, and I couldn't get any information on who owned the rights. So I thought, right, you know what, I'm gonna and I don't recommend this, by the way, to anyone who's listening to do this, but I was like, this is probably fine, I'll whack it on at the beginning and it'll be fine. And for about 3 months after uploading, and all the other songs I should mention, I licensed through various websites and stuff.
Nice.
So, and that's what I now do for all my music. And so, anyway, I thought I had got away with this because after about 3 months, nothing had come up. And usually YouTube's pretty good. Even back then in 2017, YouTube's pretty good at picking up, identifying, music that's owned by a copyright holder. So nothing came up until about 3 months later. Suddenly I got the copyright claim of Dread. And I knew that I simply didn't have the legal argument to have that song in my thing. And I was really confused because I thought it was old enough that there wouldn't be, anyone claiming it. So what I decided to do was, this actually coincided with the fact that I noticed a few errors with the film, which is that I was still getting used to Dragon Frame. Now, do you guys use Dragon Frame?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'm sure you'll agree with me. It's an excellent software for animating.
For sure.
And I actually hadn't figured out one of the fundamental things about Dragon Frame, which is that when you delete frames, you need to conform the entire take or the scene to have it update all the folders so that you have just the images that you want in your folder ready to, put in your editing software. So all the frames that I deleted were actually still in the mix with my, the frames that I needed for the film. So if you look at the original version of The Great Getaway, which I've still left on YouTube as you just need to find the link. I think it's in the description of the public version. You'll see that the animation's a little bit choppy in places, and that's because a lot of the frames, there are 2 of them. For whatever reason, I just didn't delete those frames. I hadn't figured out the conforming aspect of Dragon Frame. And so the animation gets quite choppy in places, and instead of being 15 frames a second, it'll probably be like 7.5 or something. And I picked this up, so I knew there were things that I needed to correct on the film anyway. So I thought, right, I'll get another jazz piece. This time I'll absolutely make sure that the rights are, that no one owns the rights or would potentially dispute that. And so I luckily did manage to find, I think there's a website that had a classic jazz piece that I ended up using, and I could get the license for it. And I corrected all those visual tweaks. I uploaded the new version, but and let this be a lesson to anyone who's, trying to grow their YouTube channel. I think it has always affected the success of that video. Now, the video did go on to get more than 2 million views over a course of, well, it'll be now about 5 years. But actually, that's an underperformance compared to my other big animations. And it had been doing well until I had to re-upload it. So I don't know whether the YouTube algorithm kind of punishes re-uploads. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is. But it was a little bit disappointing that because of that error I made, I feel like that film, although much loved by the people who watch it, it just has never found that big of an audience compared to like the Lego Kraken or I think even the Barracuda Heist has obviously been a lot more successful, projecting into the future than The Great Getaway. So. Yeah, that's just a little bit of my experience of navigating and learning about how to be a YouTuber, basically.
All right, so I'm going to add something to that, but then I still have a couple of things I want to say about the effects that I loved.
Okay, go on.
As far as the music goes, because we've had there are some people, just because YouTube says it's copywritten music, doesn't mean that it is, because we really try to use like either Kelvin MacLeod or the YouTube library. And I've had people put claims on the music that they had no right to, and I always keep copies of everything, and then I dispute them. I'm like, no, this person has no right to say that they, and then I get it fixed. So a lot of times, yes, it's legit, but you still need to check it out, because I know anything I use, I have copies of that. We do have rights to use it, that there is no copyright. And just because YouTube says because it's a person that just tells them, hey, they're using my my music.
Yeah.
Well, just because they say that doesn't mean they are. So just check it out carefully and make sure that they do have the legitimate rights to the music, because there have been a lot of instances where they have not with ours, and I've had to dispute the claim, and then YouTube fixes it.
You know what? I'm really glad you mentioned that. And you're absolutely correct. I think in this particular circumstance, I came to the conclusion that they hadn't made a mistake. But you could be right. Maybe I should revisit that. I don't know. But one thing I do know is that, like you say, when a copyright claim is made, legit or not, YouTube. I think it's a little bit sad that YouTube frames the entire thing around them being right and you being wrong, in the language that they use. Now, obviously, as an experienced YouTuber, I know what I'm doing, and I know I just got to keep clicking. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to dispute this. But I remember the first few times I had to make disputes when I purchase a license, and you'd still get these disputes come up. It was like quite almost a little bit scary when it's like YouTube are like, are any of these your reasons for, disputing this? And you say, like, I've got a license. Like, are you absolutely sure you know what you're doing? Like, are you ready to put your legal signature down and dispute this? We're happy to call it off at any moment and just let them win the dispute. And to be honest, part of me gets it. I know there's a lot of people uploading content all the time that will have copyright music in that, and they won't have the license. So, statistically, it makes sense that YouTube has a language to sort of be like, that's kind of a little bit in favor, I'd say, of the people who have brought up the disputes. But you've absolutely, if you're starting on YouTube and you have these, you will get these disputes. You got to just kind of know what you're doing, but be confident that you're doing the right thing, and dispute it, and
but definitely it definitely use I always use royalty-free music. That's just the easier way to go.
It's easier, but sometimes finding that right piece of music actually, definitely does something. And Kevin MacLeod doesn't always cut it. Yeah. So,
I mean, Kevin MacLeod. Let's be honest. He is an absolute hero for YouTubers in general.
Absolutely.
He offers some of the best royalty music, certainly variety of royalty-free music you can get. I think the next step up from that is like websites that let you license music, and I found that to be pretty good. And like I said, I spend a lot of time finding music that will work. I think it is really important, like Dave mentioned, like when you find that right track. I actually basically allow myself a very large budget for the music. I think I never let money restrict adding good music to a film, because I think ultimately it really does affect how well the film's received. For example, something that I'm quite proud of actually is for the Barracuda heist. I was, I basically figured out all the music for the film except the intro song. I had no idea what I was going to have for the intro song, because all of my normal sources just didn't have anything that really impacted enough to introduce the film. And I had quite a long intro sequence, and so I wanted a good song to carry the audience through that. And so I've been looking around for ages, and I found some, I did find lots of really good songs that would have worked, but I'd get in touch with the artist or the label, because this is kind of like outside of licensing websites at this point. It's just like approaching artists that maybe I found on Spotify or whatever. And I just said like, could I use your song in this film? And I explained this is what I do, and I might get a large number of views potentially and whatever. And I got positive responses, but I got a lot of people like, you can use our music on your film for free. That's fine, but we've got like a system with our label, and we'll collect the royalties from that. Now, obviously, even if I found the perfect song, I'm not going to put that into one of my films and have these artists get all the money from an animation I've spent months and months creating, because I am now doing it full time. I do have to think of it more like a business than I probably did previously. And so anyway, I was like really struggling to find a song to start the Barracuda High Staff, but I came across a song that I really liked called Heave Away, which is actually a Newfoundland song. So not really time appropriate for like pirates and the I guess early 18th century, like the golden age of piracy. But it was nautical themed, and it's a Lego animation, so I was like, I'm not going to be too pedantic about it. This song will work great. And so I contacted all these different people that did different versions of this song, and I couldn't find anyone that would help me until I found a Canadian band called the Bombadils, who were on Spotify, and they had like a YouTube channel, and they were self-published, so they didn't even have a label. And so I got to speak to them directly, which was kind of cool. And they were really excited about having their song used in the film, and we negotiated a license, and obviously I paid them to use the song, and that just worked out perfectly. I think it had just the right vibe I wanted for the film, and I had people watch the film and tell me how much they liked the introduction song, and they even went to listen to more songs by the Bombadils. I had parents who had kids who fell in love with the song and therefore the band as well. And that was just I don't know, it's the first time I'd ever really done anything like that, like speaking directly to like an artist and the band and negotiating a license and stuff. But I'm really glad I did it. And I think, getting that right song, I think, is incredibly important for the actual overall experience you have when you view one of these films. So.
Yeah, definitely. Now I think that was great that worked out both for you and for the band. Just for me, just because of headache wise, I won't use any music that doesn't already have the Creative Commons license, because I find it's just more trouble than it's worth for lots of reasons. So it's just easier, safer, not for us or for me not to have to mess with that.
Yeah, we're not making money from YouTube.
Yeah,
anymore
so
anyway.
it's
they fired us twice. So.
Okay.
Yeah, they recently just dropped us from
the partner
whatever, revenue sharing, and it's
just.
Oh,
really? Yeah, I've heard about this. I know. You must be familiar with Chawner. What's his name?
I think
James,
he got his back though. I think James.
Did he get his back?
I hear he got his back, but he gets a lot more views than us.
Yes, I mean, it's not like we were making any money anyway. We couldn't even buy a cup of coffee or tea with it, so it's not like it's a great loss. It's more like the principle.
Those things, though, I don't really understand why they can't sustain, because a monetized view is a monetized view. I don't really understand why it would cost YouTube anything extra to have adverts on a video, even if that video got not many views.
Right? Yeah. What does it matter?
What does it matter? At the end of the day, it's all just a numbers game, isn't it? And
a view is a view. If you have a few extra added to it, then just good for you. It's not costing extra.
Wanting to purge the 80% of people they send a $5 check to.
Right, but then that $5 check.
We never even got any money. Yeah, we didn't even get any.
Yeah, so it's like I understand that they maybe want to cut down the number of people they need to owe money to, but that money has been earned through monetized views. There must be some. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure someone probably could explain why they've done that. But yeah, I'm sorry to hear that that's happened, and I don't really understand the logic myself. But no, YouTube. It's been interesting seeing how YouTube's changed, especially now I've gone back into doing it full time. How the game's changed a fair bit since I used to make videos, and I do often think that if I started today, I think you've got to be more persistent today to make it on YouTube than you did back in 2007 when I first started uploading. And,
Definitely.
I'd start. Yeah, exactly. I was a YouTube partner by 2010. And I just think back then there was a lot less competition and a lot less things. That's not to say, like, to anyone listening, if you're making great content, that will succeed eventually. I think you just got to be persistent, and you definitely got to find your niche, perhaps more than you did before.
We've definitely seen a lot of YouTube changes over the years, but I always say if you're enjoying what you're doing, that's really all that matters. You shouldn't be doing it to please other people. Do it because you enjoy it. It makes you feel good, and then that's in the end, that's really all that matters.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I've learned some great skills that I've actually been able to bring into my job now that I would not have video editing skills if it wasn't for brick filming. So, I learned a life skill that I can use actually to make real, money away from brick filming. So this
is, I think, one of the amazing things about brick filming is that you could be a kid with like a mobile phone and make your own Lego animation, in an afternoon. But you could, on the other end, you could be like a professional brick filmer that's like an expert in like editing, cinematography, camera equipment, photography, stop motion, storyboarding, just storytelling in general. It can be like as sophisticated or as simple as you want it to be. And I can't think of many forms of like sort of, I guess, like activities that or skill sets that are like that. That's one of the reasons I still enjoy it, even as I'm getting older, is like, it can be as almost technical as you want it to be. And I get a lot of, satisfaction, like you're saying, like picking up these skills like editing, and all the things I've just mentioned. So, that's one of the great things about brick filming for sure.
All right, I'm going to do a quick jump back into the Great Getaway just to tell you my favorite parts. And this is a silly thing, but the pool table. I love that. I love seeing the balls moving on. I mean, I just thought that was so cool. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so realistic. And I don't remember seeing that. So it really stood out to me. I really thought it was adorable and should be done more often.
I think you've touched on something there. So first of all, thank you. Like it's nice to be able to include the little details. And I think one of the things people generally love about stop motion is when there's detail. I think one of the reasons Wallace and Gromit is so well loved by people is just the amazing attention to detail that is put into those films. And I think just small things, like you said, like the pool table, people walk away and they remember that. It's strange. I've had people walk away from the Barracuda heist and maybe say to me like, "Oh, I really loved it when he left the table and the cup kind of rotated for a little bit before it kind of stopped. It kind of like rocked around." And it's such a small detail when you're thinking about like this film that's got pirate ships, cannons, sword fights and everything, but they remember this cup kind of balancing around.
And I remember the guy eating something from a bowl and thinking, "Oh my God, that looks so yummy."
Yeah. Yeah, in my mind he was eating soup. I mean, you never see the soup, but that's what I was thinking.
I think in my mind it was ramen just because.
Nice.
Anyway, the other thing I want to mention, the bullet hole effects that you do, which is really great because, again, another stop motion effect.
In camera.
Yeah, in camera effect. That's just so cool that you use the little studs.
I think they're like little flower studs. I think.
Yeah. To be honest, I think I did that because it was kind of the easiest way to solve that problem. I think that there probably are things you could do in post to achieve something there, but I like you say, I think I prefer in-camera effects, and Yeah, you know what? A number of people have mentioned that to me, that they liked the placement of those pieces as bullet holes, and so yeah, it's just another example. These little details really do like stick with people, yeah, I'm glad we're talking about The Great Getaway, because I think, apart from maybe the Barracuda Heist, I think that is the one I'm most proud of making, and I feel like it has a very nice like flow to it that my other animations maybe don't, and it feels more like a short film than a lot of my other films. So I'm really pleased that that you both like it.
Yeah, that had a lot of beautiful effects, and definitely my last favorite would be the chandelier.
Yeah.
Not only was it a beautiful chandelier, but then the breaking and all that was just amazing. Was that from another set, or did you actually make that?
It was from a set. I think that is the chandelier from the Grand Emporium, the modular building that they did way back. Me and my younger brother Jacob used to get, we had all the original modular buildings because he bought the very first two, including Cafe Corner. Then I got the greengrocer, and we kept buying them for a little bit. I think the last one I got was the detective's office. I think that would be like 2015 or 16, which you can actually see in the background of The Great Getaway. And so, yeah, quite often I'd pull bits off those modular buildings or use them in some way. And the chandelier was one of the things I used. Yeah. If I could go back, I probably would like try and like light it up with LEDs or something. That's something I want to look into doing more often. But you know, I think it for all intents and purposes it worked.
Absolutely worked, and like I said, the breaking of it was really amazing.
Yeah, some of your animation using like either the Lego chains or little strings for ropes, that's got to be so difficult to do. I was watching those scenes. It's like I would be crying if I was trying to make those scenes.
Do you know, it's an interesting point. I think basically it's all about frame of mind. So, funny enough, when I was listening to the episode of your podcast with Michael Hickox, I was actually animating whilst I was listening to that, and you asked him a question like about how long it takes to do a shot or something, and he said that like, one of the longest shots I did took about 3 hours. Now, obviously, listen, 3 hours is a long time, to be animating. Stop motion does take a long time. 3 hours is a long time. But as I was listening to that, I was completing a shot that I'd been working on from 10 a.m. that morning, and at that time it was about 7 p.m. And that was just for one shot of the animation I'm working on. And it's all... And so basically at that point, I kind of wanted to cry. I was just like, why am I doing this to myself? This isn't normal. But it's all about frame of mind. So when I start a day of animating, I've already accepted like that things are going to take a long time. So things like explosions or ropes, chains, complicated things to animate, I'm kind of already in the frame of mind where it's just like you just do it one step at a time, literally. I mean, that is what stop motion is. And if it takes all day, it takes all day. The fact is, I'm now doing this. I'm now fortunate enough to be doing this full time, and if I can complete one challenging shot by the end of the day, that's great. That's all in a day's work. And you just kind of get used to that. So yeah, if I'm like dealing with something like a chain, it's like it might take me a long time between each frame to animate that, and you do have to be patient, of course, but I kind of I would never think to myself, oh my gosh, this is taking forever, why is it taking forever, this needs to be done so I can move on. I've already kind of accepted before the day's even started that I might only get one shot done in that day. It just naturally takes a long time. And so that's kind of, I hope that kind of makes sense. That's kind of how I deal with time-consuming shots.
Yeah, that's a good idea to have a realistic view of what could or couldn't happen. It's the reason that I would never be a brick filmer, is because I don't have any patience at all. And it definitely takes a lot of patience to do stop motion animation. So that will never be me.
I suppose. Yeah, it does take patience. I think as well, if I'm being perfectly honest, like it is exhausting when you do a full, when it's like a challenging shot. It takes like a whole day or whatever. I never like to leave a shot overnight unfinished. I mean, you never know if like something could happen during the night. Maybe the camera moves somehow. I don't know. Like it's unlikely, but I try and get things finished on the day once I've started filming. And yeah, sometimes I'll animate till 7 p.m. and I'll come home and it'll be late, but and I am feeling exhausted, but at the same time you get that almost instant reward of seeing the shot finished, and it just looks fantastic, and that kind of I think it's that reward feedback that kind of keeps me going through these projects. Yeah.
Oh, also on The Great Getaway, you were runner-up at the Cinebrick Film Festival 2017. So congratulations for that.
That was the second time you've been runner-up, which is an impressive feat, because that's difficult to be up in the on the pedestal or the podium for that event.
Well, thank you very much. And that Cinebrick was my first ever submission of a film into a film festival. And yeah, my first submission was the year before with I think I entered a number of films because Carlos, who runs in Portugal, he sent an email to me saying like, I like your brick films. Do you want to enter any brick films into this year's Cinebrick Film Festival? I was like, yes, of course. That would be great. And I think I sent him like The Kraken, the London Bank Robbery, maybe my pirate film at the time, my 2011 one. At that time, I hadn't really like been abroad much at all, and it was something I was kind of looking into doing more, like maybe a little bit of traveling. I think I just found out I was going to be doing my PhD at Lancaster, and I had this summer holiday to fill, and I was kind of in a good mood, so I was like, why don't I just turn up to this this film event? And so I found a friend, one of my university friends, shout out to them, who was willing to like go on me on this adventure to Portugal. And we were kind of going to the middle of nowhere, right on the border between Spain and Portugal, to this film festival, this Lego film festival. And we had a blast doing that. And I did summarize it in a video, I think, on my channel, so you can go check that out. I think it's like Hamster Productions on Tour or something. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting at all to like you say, be finishing in the top 3 or whatever. I mean, the competition was incredible. I remember there were entries from like Brotherhood Workshop. He makes amazing animations. Digital Wizard, again, they had great animations. I think maybe Digital Wizard did. Maybe they were first, actually. I can't quite remember. But anyway, I was like completely over the moon to get second place, and that was great as well because I could get all that in my video as well. And then so the year after, I submitted the Great Getaway, and I was delighted again to once again finish second place. My goal though now is like, I've been second place twice. Surely one day I can get the top spot. I don't know if it's possible, but I think I need to keep fighting until I do.
Well, I said the Barrack heist is
yeah, because they didn't have a Cinebrick, I guess, in the last year.
Right,
or two,
so there you go. There's your chance.
Hopefully that's still eligible, and then your new medieval film you're making. Hopefully that'll be out this year. Do you think it will be?
Okay, touch wood. It will be out this summer. So that's the plan. Maybe late summer, but summer nonetheless. And there's a number of reasons why I want to stick to that time frame, but I really hope. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a major brick film done last year. There's a number of projects I've been working on. Plus, I moved my entire studio from Lancaster to Liverpool last year, so there's all of that going on. And so it was a bit disappointing I couldn't get a brick film out last year. So I'm ready, to get one out this year, and I just cannot wait to see the reaction from people with this new one. It's already shaping up very well. Filming began last week, so it's all been planned out and all the sets have been made. So I'm just now animating, and it's going to be a very exciting one. So yeah, absolutely, I'd enter that into any future Cinebricks film festivals. I'm pretty sure I could still enter the Barracuda Heist in. I remember when I submitted films for the first Cinebrick I went to. I actually, the film that came second place was the London bank robbery that I think had been out for a few years. So unless that's changed, hopefully I can enter any films I can. I mean, I wonder if it'll be happening this year. I think there has been some talk of it coming back. And I did hear that the Lego event that it kind of piggybacks off has come back. So we'll have to see. But it's definitely something that I'm trying to do more, is enter my films into film festivals. It's nice to, especially if I can turn up, it's nice to like sit down, just see an audience of random people watch my film and see their reaction to it. And I that's an experience I think I'll never grow tired of. So yeah, I'm always trying to find new festivals to enter my stuff into. I was fortunate enough actually with the Barracuda Heist. There was a local shorts film festival happening in Lancaster where I made the film, and that was terrific because I got to meet a bunch of other kind of Lancashire-based filmmakers, and I saw kind of more widely a few films from like directors from the area, so maybe like more in the northwest in general, the northwest of England, and that was great as well because I actually got the Audience Choice Award, so everyone there voted on their favourite, and they voted for me. So I was very I was quite touched that people voted for me, and it was it's kind of nice to, after you've made something and put so much work into it, to sort of not only share it with people at these events, but also kind of have it like recognised a little bit and maybe get an award or two. That's something that I enjoy doing, and you get to network a lot. So for sure as well, now that I'm aware of the Brick Filmers Guild competition, I'll be sure to enter my films into that going forward as well.
Awesome. And we did get to see some of that nice festival in the behind the scenes, so that was cool too.
Yes, I absolutely, yeah. I think so. I did a whole video about Cinebrick, and then I think I mentioned I kind of try and do like an annual update video for my channel, and I've sort of discussed a few things that the Barracuda Heist has been shown at. Oh yeah, and you're right. I did include it in the in the behind the scenes video.
Yeah. So that was fun. Now I'm going to say something that's like kind of unrelated, but I guess a shout out to Liverpool because, I told you I talk to my aunt every Saturday. And so I talked to her this morning and told her that we would be chatting with you. And I said that your studio is in Liverpool. So she's like, oh, well, Liverpool just won the spot for some Euro voice singing thing because it couldn't be in Ukraine. So I guess the second runner up was from Liverpool or something.
Oh, gosh. So, it's like Eurovision.
Yeah.
Eurovision. Oh, that's one thing I wasn't expecting we'd be talking about today. Yeah.
She doesn't watch it, but of course she knows all about it, but she doesn't have the patience to watch that all day. Yeah. But I thought it was funny.
I think Britain has an interesting relationship with Eurovision. We're historically speaking, we've had our successes, but we've also certainly had our losses, including quite often finishing with 0 points. Which, if you didn't know, essentially every country in Europe or every country taking part within Eurovision, they all vote and distribute a number of points to their, their favorite. I think it'd be like maybe 10 or so countries that they vote for, and everyone else gets 0. And basically, as that accumulates, you get a distribution of points. So you'll have whoever's leading with the most points, and then that'll go down and down, and then at the bottom would often be us with 0 points after the entire voting had been completed. So we've had an interesting history of Eurovision. But I, for one, am someone who I enjoy watching Eurovision. I'm happy to have that on record. I kind of enjoy it from a sense of I don't really fully understand what it is or why it's happening or why it exists. But I kind of find it entertaining, like from a sense of, wow. You see things that you just simply wouldn't see outside of Eurovision. And also Graham Norton, who does the commentary, is absolutely hilarious. So, yeah, to be honest, like if I can get tickets to go, I probably will go. I think me and my family, me and my brothers are going to try and go. And yeah, it's quite exciting. It's coming to Liverpool. Liverpool actually is just, I've been here for about 9 months now. It's just a wonderfully creative city. I've met so many different kinds of creative people and people who run their small businesses, and it's been like a terrific kind of scene to be part of now that I'm going into animation full time. Plus, I'm still in the Northwest, so I'm close to my colleagues in Lancaster. I'm close to my family, and yeah, it's actually been an extremely welcoming city, and been a nice place to move to. So that's been an aspect of this whole operation that I've enjoyed.
Yeah, that's great.
One of my favorite all-time bands is from there, so there we go.
Yeah, well, that would make 2 of us because the Beatles are my favorite band. So
it's funny when I first heard you talk when I was watching, I was like, oh, the Beatles. I knew right away that you were from that area, and then plus a lot of my family was from Birmingham, which is not too far, and it's very similar in certain speeches. So speech patterns, yeah. So yes, very easy to understand. Of course, I understand all of it anyway, but
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have because I love the Beatles. Even when there was a time in my life when I wasn't really buying Lego sets when I went to university. But I remember they did release the Yellow Submarine set. I don't know if you remember that.
Definitely.
And I bought. You have it, excellent.
Yeah,
I bought it on day 1. I was like there on the website, just like straight away ordering it, and I proudly have that set up in my studio. Now that I'm in Liverpool, it just makes sense to have it on display. So yeah, great set.
Yeah, very nice. So I guess
we've probably taken up enough of your time. I'd love to talk to you more about music because I got a feeling you do music on your own. I think I saw you playing an accordion at one point.
Oh yeah, that was really cute too.
And I suspect you like to listen to music, if not podcasts when you animate. But
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? This has always been the case, and it seems to always be becoming more the case that at any opportunity, if I'm doing any kind of job where I don't need to be using all of my brain power, I get the tunes on straight away. It somehow helps almost keep the flow of what I'm doing, especially with animation. If it's like something quite simple, if I get the music on, it just helps me almost navigate the scene and keep the momentum going with the stop motion. And I found that even when I was doing my PhD, unless it was something very technical, I'd always be listening to music. And I think maybe that ties into the fact that I do really put a lot of time into thinking about what songs should go into my films. I don't know. Yeah, music plays a huge part in my work, just from multiple aspects. But I do often listen to podcasts as well. What I'll do is if I'm animating all day, I'll probably put music on, at the beginning of the day. I've got my coffee, listen to music, and then maybe after lunch, that kind of afternoon period, then that's that point I like to put on a podcast. And I don't know why that is, but I just find that at that point I kind of I like maybe all the radio. I like listening to sort of a bit more kind of chat based audio instead of just music.
I would think probably because you feel like you're not alone at that point. It's like other people are chatting and it's like you're in the room with them and you're not by yourself.
Maybe. But that was certainly the case when I was animating at Lancaster because I was working from home. Now though, so I moved my studio to a community, it's like a kind of community of freelancers in Liverpool. And basically I have my own studio. We're all kind of residents. We all kind of pay rent for our studios, but everyone here kind of runs their own businesses. So obviously I do my Lego animation, and my neighbor has like a bike shop, and then next to that there's someone who does costume design. Then next to that there was the guy I mentioned earlier, Jamie, who makes basically anything you can think up. And so during my lunch break, there's a bunch of basically I now kind of have a social life at work, even though I'm working as a solo freelance animator. I'll go to lunch and I'll chat with whoever's available. So that need to kind of I guess like when I was doing it in Lancaster, I was totally on my own. So after a day's work, I'd probably try and meet someone for a drink or whatever. But I think that need to have that kind of that social life at work isn't as sorry, I'm trying to remember what we're talking about the podcast. Yeah, I think I do like listening to chat for that reason, but it's maybe not as much as before, if that makes sense. So that was a bit of a tangent on what you're saying.
Oh, good.
All right. Well, I can't help this question because I noticed it in the behind the scenes of the Barracuda Ice. I saw the Cadbury's tins, and my mouth was watering looking at all that yummy English stuff that I love so much. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite chocolate bar?
Oh my gosh, the ultimate question. This is a tough one. I think you can't go wrong.
So many good ones there.
There are so many good ones. I mean, to be honest, the reason they're good is because they're absolutely crammed with sugar, so you do have to be careful. But you can't go wrong with a good bar of dairy milk.
Yep.
I like that. But I do also really quite like the kind of I go for more dark chocolate these days. I feel maybe a bit of Bourneville, so that's Cadbury's again. But there's a brand I don't know the name of the brand, but they do a kind of gosh, I'm trying to remember where it's from, but it says on the chocolate bar where the cocoa beans come from. These darker chocolates that I quite like those now. So yeah. I mean, do you have a favorite?
Oh, I do. But I mean, I love lots of them. The dairy milk is of course delicious. Flakes melt in your mouth, yumminess. Yeah. Love
Flakes
crunchies, penguins. But all of my English friends know that my absolute favorite is the Lion Bar.
Really? Okay.
And some who is it? One
Gareth sent us.
Gareth was wonderful.
He sent us
package of Lion bars. An Easter one, so it came in a lion box with a big huge egg and lion bars, and I don't share those with anybody.
I'm gonna have to try a lion bar. I've not had one in a while. Is it a bit like double decker? I don't know if you've had one of them.
I've had double decker. I mean, it kind of has everything in it. It's chocolate covered. It's got the that kind of thing like the Kit Kat has. That, what do you call it? The
crunch biscuit.
The biscuit in the middle, yeah. But then it also has caramel, and I think it's just perfect. The whole melt. It just the whole. I'm drooling all over everything. Yeah, they are my absolute favorite.
I'll tell you one other. God, sorry, Kim. But what did you say? Sorry, I missed it.
Oh, just when next time you're having a lion bar, think of me.
think of me.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, yeah.
Have one for me. Who was it from the pot? He actually ate one for me.
That would have been
because he had never had one, and I'm like, what?
He was on the frame. Oh.
I know, and I feel so terrible that I like I said, my brain is just such mush that I can't even. And he's such a nice English guy, and he's so sweet. Yeah, I just feel. Well, anyway, Sean is gonna pipe in. He's gonna listen to this, and then he'll say, "Oh, you're talking about this person." I'm like, "Yes, of course." Or I'll think of it and I'll put it in the comments because now I feel bad that I can't on the spot think of his name. But
he was on the Frame 100 podcast.
Yeah,
a while back.
But anyway,
Tom.
Sean, I believe Sean can figure it out. I've got to say, when I did the podcast with for the World of Brick Films podcast,
which is an awesome.
podcast.
Everybody go listen to it.
Yeah, everyone go listen to that podcast. Yeah, it's great. And I was amazed, and I still am amazed at Sean's ability to. His library of knowledge in regards to Lego animation, I think it must be unparalleled.
Oh, absolutely.
That man is the world expert on Lego animation.
More so than anybody that I know. I mean,
I don't know if you guys are on the there's a Bricks in Motion Discord that you can join.
Oh yeah.
So I joined that. I'm not massively active on it, but I do from time to time check in or ask a question or share something. And I've seen people say like, "Oh yeah, I remember watching this animation when I was a kid where like I don't know, a dog eats a hat or something." And from that one bit of information, Sean will be like, "Oh yeah, it's this from on YouTube." Boom, and I'll have like the link.
Yeah,
and it's just like
he's
it blows
our go-to for everything. If we don't know something, we ask him, and boom, he knows. And he'll even like. If we're talking about it in a podcast, he'll write a comment and say, "Oh, you're talking about so-and-so." Yeah, he knows everything. He is the one person that knows everything about brick filming and brick films and people, and just he's amazing. We love
absolutely. Shout out to Sean.
Yeah,
Sean
love you.
Yeah.
John and William do a great job on that podcast. I love it. Can't get enough of them. In fact, that's the reason. I should have known about you beforehand, but it was their podcast that turned me on to you. Realized that you were out there. I was like, oh my gosh, there's this dude making these incredible action brick films, and I did not know who it was. And thanks to them, I found you. So yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's good to know that Well, it's a nice way to get outreach by doing these podcasts, and also I think this is something I realized when I did that podcast, because that was the first time. I've done a podcast talking specifically about my Lego work, and I just realized how nice it is to actually talk about Lego animation. I mean, I feel like it's quite a niche subset of animation in general that has now a well-established community, and it's just nice to be able to talk about it in detail with fellow enthusiasts of Lego animation. And that's just something I kind of discovered for the first time on that podcast, and like meeting people like Will and Sean who really know their stuff in that world. So and I've got to say it's nice to have the opportunity to do it again on this podcast, and I think we've touched on different things than we did in that podcast. So that's been kind of nice as well to talk more about Lego animation and maybe give people a bit of insight into what I do and a few of the details behind what I do.
Yeah, and we're happy definitely to share that with anybody who, I mean, probably everybody already knows you, but just in case, I can't stress enough whether they've seen the Barracuda heist or not. If not, watch the behind the scenes first to see what you went through to put that together, and then watch it again. Watch the Barracuda heist after that, and it's just absolutely brilliant in every way. Loved it so much, and I really can't say enough good things about it. Well,
thank you, and I hope people enjoy it. I think I never really was hugely active, I guess, in the brick filming community. I did always upload or share my things on Bricks in Motion, the website. But that was basically it. And it's been nice in the last year or two to kind of establish myself more, both through social media and also through doing these podcasts and joining the Discord and stuff, to kind of be more involved in the community, I guess. Yeah, so thanks again for your invitation and allowing me to, talk about what I do.
Well, we appreciate you being on. You've been absolutely delightful, just as I knew you would. And
Thank you.
yeah, it's just, and you're welcome back anytime. We'd love to have you back again.
Well, thank you very much. It's been really nice to meet you both, and I'm very excited to see who you have on next. And there's still a few episodes I've not listened to, so whilst I'm animating, I'll definitely be putting on the podcast and listening to more experts talking about what they do. So yeah, a lot
of good insight. It's always fun to hear how people do things. So yeah, we have definitely interviewed a lot of amazing people, so we've been very lucky there and happy to add you to the list.
Well, thank you very much.
And we'll make sure everybody has all the links to your amazing work, and we wish you the best of luck with everything that you have going on going forward. And just thanks again for joining us, and
thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, enjoy your weekend too. And I guess because this is the first episode of 2023.
Yeah.
I hope everyone has a great 2023 and a good year. And until next time, I guess.
Yes, stay safe and healthy.
You too.
Cheers,
Thanks.
Josh. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much to Josh for being so incredibly generous with his time, and thanks to everyone who stuck with us through this entire podcast. Please check out our sponsors and partners on the Brick Filmers Guild homepage, and don't forget to check out Josh's amazing brick films on his YouTube channel. All of his links can be found under the video. We want to give a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters: Something's Awry Productions, Frame 5 Studios, Mind Game Studios, Dark Dragon Films, Forest Fire 101, Spencer Katz, Paganimation, William Osborne, Sam Futhy, and the Tenacious Brick. You guys really do inspire us to keep creating more of these in-depth conversations with the world's great brick filmers. If you would like to sponsor one of our podcasts, please contact me through one of our social media sites. The sponsors we have are always brick film related and are products that we use ourselves and highly recommend. We would like to thank Kevin MacLeod for his wonderful music, which we use for our podcasts and in our brick films. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or YouTube, please like or rate, comment, and share on your social media. We'd really appreciate that. So, until next time, bye y'all!